Chapter 891. Emperor Qianbian. Qin Wentian and the others inclined their heads and stared at the newcomer. They didn't feel strange at all. Was this an expert sent by the heavenly talisman realm? The moment he appeared, he was already an immortal emperor. The strength of the heavenly talisman realm might have exceeded the imaginations of Qin Wentian and the others. After all, they had been hiding in the immortal realms for so many years, and had nurtured many powerful characters. Qianbian, back then you and I fought for supremacy in the chaotic era, and were defeated in the end. Now you actually sent your disciples to cause trouble at my immortal banquet? The Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He slowly soared up into the air as a formless pressure enveloped this entire space. This invisible pressure was extremely terrifying. What do you mean by causing trouble? The immortal banquet you organized at the Dongshengshan Gate, and the three of them came to participate. They wanted to see what kind of geniuses your Eastern Sage 13 prefectures have nurtured. In the end, you should have already seen the ending for yourself. In the air, millions of figures spoke at the same time, their voices echoing throughout the space. It was unknown who the true body was. For those who didn't know the identity of the Emperor Qianbian, they were all stunned. The person who appeared was actually an old rival of the Eastern Sage Emperor? In this case, the appearance of Qin Wentian and the others could be explained. So this was the case. The heavenly talisman realm seems to be intentionally creating this misunderstanding. Qin Wentian and the others silently mused. The moment the Emperor Qianbian appeared, everyone felt that it was only natural, treating them as disciples of the Emperor Qianbian, thinking that the Emperor Qianbian was targeting the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. In this case, no one would think that it was an external power. You nurtured these three disciples just for the sake of this immortal banquet? The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor stood in the air. It was like he could see through everything with a single glance. The reason why the Emperor Qianbian sent these three disciples to participate in the immortal banquet, and even personally appeared, it was definitely not just for the sake of the top 3 rankings. Eastern Sage, you are the one who understands me the most. Back then I was defeated and roamed the boundless immortal realms. Now that I have returned to the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, as your old rival, how do you think you should welcome my return? The many silhouettes of the Emperor Qianbian spoke in unison. An invisible pressure enveloped the entire Dongshengshan Gate, causing everyone in the immortal banquet to feel nervous. The Emperor Qianbian had made a comeback, just to send his disciple to participate in an immortal banquet? How do you want me to welcome you? Dongsheng Heaven Emperor asked coldly. The Eastern Sage 13 prefectures shall be divided into East and West. I want 6 prefectures. As the Emperor Qianbian spoke, the countenances of many experts instantly changed. The Emperor Qianbian of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures wanted 6 prefectures. This time around he made a comeback, wanting to regain the position he lost in the past. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor fell silent. The Emperor Qianbian wanted 6 prefectures. This meant that the Emperor Qianbian was confident that his strength was already sufficient to contend against the Eastern Sage Empire. In the immortal realms, seizing territory firstly depended on the strength of the experts at the peak. If the Emperor Qianbian was inferior to the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, he wouldn't have the qualifications to ask for the division of territory. If not, even if he could kill countless subordinates of the Eastern Sage Empire, the Eastern Sage Empire could still hunt him down endlessly, killing him until he had no path to the heavens or the gates to the earth. This territory would still belong to the Eastern Sage Empire. Hence, unless one was an extremely ruthless person, if one's strength was too weak, they would choose to retreat. At the immortal emperor level, everything had to be done according to the rules. The hearts of the immortal kings below all instantly tensed up as they stared at the Emperor Qianbian in the air. Compared to the Emperor Qianbian wanting 6 prefectures, Qin Wentian and the others obtaining the top 3 rankings wasn't a big deal at all. If he wanted 6 prefectures, this meant that the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor would have to evacuate his subordinates and hand them over to the Emperor Qianbian to govern. This meant that the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures would be divided, and the sky would change. Some of the immortal kings here were from the Dongshengshan Gate, while others weren't from the Dongshengshan Gate. However, They were all stellar martial cultivators of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. The appearance of the Emperor Qianbian would definitely affect the situation of the 13 prefectures. How could they not be nervous? A faint smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. At this moment he finally understood. So it turned out that their participation in this immortal banquet, obtaining the top 3 rankings and completing the test, was merely the first step of the Heavenly Talisman Realm. The true purpose of the Heavenly Talisman Realm was actually to seize the 6 prefectures from the hands of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Is the Heavenly Talisman Realm preparing to contend for supremacy in the immortal realms? Qin Wentian silently mused. Wait, the Heavenly Talisman Realm clearly doesn't intend to expose themselves. If not, given their strength, they would have already conquered the entire Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. There's basically no need for the old rival of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, the Emperor Qianbian, to appear and ask for the 6 prefectures to govern. This is a gradual infiltration. In addition, the Emperor Qianbian is an old rival of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. It's only logical that he would make a comeback and seize back what he lost in the past. No one would suspect anything. Qin Wentian analyzed. The Heavenly Talisman Realm wanted to infiltrate the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures step by step and leave no traces behind. Seems like you came here prepared. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's voice was as imposing as ever, but it was even more solemn than before. He stared at the Emperor Qianbian and asked, "Which 6 prefectures do you want?" Your Dongshengshan Gate is located in the Eastern Prefecture, in the eastern region of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. I naturally won't make things difficult for you. I only want 6 prefectures to the west. Your Dongshengshan Gate can still govern 7 prefectures. The Emperor Qianbian replied. It has been so many years since I fought. To think that there would be a battle today at my Dongshengshan Gate. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke. According to the rules of the immortal realms, if the Emperor Qianbian wanted 6 prefectures, he had to be equal to his Dongshengshan Gate in terms of strength. Firstly, the Emperor Qianbian had to be able to stand equally against him, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. If not, he wouldn't have the qualifications to fight with him. As the sound of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor's voice faded, boundless immortal light radiated from him. This kind of light was so bright that people couldn't even open their eyes. His arms trembled as he punched out in the air. In just an instant, the entire space seemed to tremble violently as countless terrifying fist lights appeared in the air. Each fist contained an incomparably fearsome law energy as they blasted towards the silhouettes of the Emperor Qianbian. Above the many silhouettes of the Emperor Qianbian, boundless dark violet lightning suddenly appeared. In an instant, the entire sky transformed into a net of lightning. A fearsome destructive might enveloped the entire Dongshengshan Gate, causing people to feel a sense of doomsday. The silhouettes of the Emperor Qianbian all carried the lightning world on their backs as they pointed their fingers forward. Their finger attacks penetrated through the tens of thousands of fist lights, completely destroying them. Not a single trace of their attacks landed on the Dongshengshan Gate. From this, one could see how terrifying their control was. Qianbian, let's go up and fight. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor spoke. The Emperor Qianbian nodded, carrying the lightning world on his back as he soared up into the air. If these 2 supreme experts were to fight at the Dongshengshan Gate, it would be enough to destroy the entire Dongshengshan Gate. Countless people at the Dongshengshan Gate would die. The sin of killing was too heavy. The temperament of people at their level was extraordinary. If there wasn't a life-and-death feud, they wouldn't do such inhumane things. How peaceful. Qin Wentian was silently shocked when he saw this scene. The Emperor Qianbian came to claim 6 prefectures, yet the 2 of them were so peaceful. It was as though they were just sparring. The crowd raised their heads and stared at the sky. Qin Wentian could only see 2 blurry silhouettes. However, he could see the terrifying scene in the sky. The sky was originally clear, but at this moment, it was shrouded by destructive thunderclouds. The entire sky was filled with terrifying destructive lightning, engulfing the entire Dongshengshan Gate. Even this vast imperial city could see the scene in the sky. As the battle continued, waves of pressure could be felt from the sky. At this moment, the people of the Eastern Immortal City inclined their heads in shock. What was going on? Such a terrifying battle. What level of battle was it exactly? Today, the Dongshengshan Gate should still be hosting the Immortal Banquet, right? What happened during the banquet? There seems to be two people. Some of the more powerful characters had extremely good eyesight. They could see through the vast space, and could faintly see the blurry silhouettes in the sky. Oh my god, it seems like the Eastern Sage Emperor is fighting against someone. Voices rang out in the Eastern Immortal City, causing the hearts of countless people to tremble. There was someone fighting against the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? Although the people of the Eastern Immortal City hadn't seen the Dongxing Heaven Emperor before, they had all seen the statue of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor before. Not too long after, everyone in the city was staring at the terrifying scene in the sky. Although they didn't know what exactly was happening, they knew that it was definitely something major. At the Immortal Banquet at the Dongshengshan Gate, the Immortal Kings were all staring at the battle in the sky. All of them were incomparably solemn, not daring to be distracted for even a moment. For those who couldn't see the battle, their hearts were all tensed up. The outcome of this battle was simply too terrifying. Qin Wentian, on the other hand, was extremely relaxed. The Emperor Qianbian had arrived and challenged the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor. Regardless of victory or defeat, his crisis had already been resolved. Unless the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor could kill the Emperor Qianbian on the spot, who would dare to obstruct him if an Immortal Emperor wanted to bring him away? If the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor wanted to kill them, the Emperor Qianbian would definitely cause the Dongshengshan Gate to flow with rivers of blood. This point the Immortal Kings of the Dongshengshan Gate all understood. Since the Emperor Qianbian allowed Qin Wentian and the others to appear here, he definitely wouldn't allow them to die here. The Cloud Prefecture belongs to the western region of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. Only to see that at this moment, the Idle Cloud Immortal King was extremely nervous. Once the 6 prefectures were divided into the territories of the Emperor Qianbian, he would be summoned back to the Dongshengshan Gate. From then on, the Cloud Prefecture would no longer be under his jurisdiction. The Emperor Qianbian must have planned this for a very long time. Everyone thought to themselves. Above the sky, there was a terrifying pressure spreading down, and there were even lightning bolts striking down from time to time. Eastern Sage, after our parting in the past, seems like your improvement is limited. The Eastern Sage 13 prefectures shall be divided into the Eastern and Western prefectures. From now on, the 6 prefectures in the Western region shall be governed by me, the Emperor Qianbian. My request shouldn't be too overboard, right? At this moment, a thunderous voice rang out from the air, resounding through the entire Eastern Immortal City, causing the hearts of countless people to tremble. There was a supreme expert who wanted the Dongxing Heaven Emperor to hand over the 6 prefectures in the Western region, allowing him to govern them. This person was none other than the Emperor Qianbian. It was as though he wanted his voice to resound through the entire Eastern Immortal City. Chapter 892. Qianbian, after so many years, your improvement truly isn't small. I have no way to deal with you, but you are the same as well. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's imposing voice rang out. The two of them battled in the air, both of them seemed to be equally matched. However, if it's just you alone, you still don't have the qualifications to demand the 6 prefectures from me. My Dongshengshan Gate doesn't only have a single immortal emperor. As the sound of his voice rang out, everyone in the Eastern Immortal City felt their hearts trembling. There was actually another immortal emperor in the Dongshengshan Gate. There was a high possibility that this immortal emperor was one of the 4 paragons who followed the Dongxing Heaven Emperor back then. I naturally already know this point. Feel it carefully again. The Emperor Qianbian spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, a moment of silence filled the air. After that, the voice of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor rang out again. Good, you truly came prepared. It's just that even if I hand over the 6 prefectures to you, how can your subordinates contend against my Eastern Sage army? There's one point you should be very clear about. The moment you officially establish your power in the 6 prefectures, it would mean that you are declaring war against my Dongshengshan Gate. My Eastern Sage army will launch an attack anytime. The moment you establish your power, my Eastern Sage army would immediately annihilate you. Other than harming the weak, what's the point of doing so? I've governed the 13 prefectures for so many years. It's not something that your hastily established power can contend against. Also, there's no other power that would dare to submit to you. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor spoke. Wars in the immortal realms naturally had their own rules. If the strength of both parties wasn't equal, there's no doubt that the stronger one would dominate the 13 prefectures. For example, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was the strongest expert in the 13 prefectures. Although the other powers didn't belong to the Dongshengsheng Gate, they had to acknowledge the Dongxing Heaven Emperor as the ruler of the 13 prefectures. If the strength of both parties were equal, for example, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor and the Emperor of Qianbian. In that case, if the Emperor of Qianbian had the intention to establish his own territory in the 13 prefectures, he would have the qualifications to negotiate with the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Unless the Dongshengsheng Gate had the strength to defeat the Emperor of Qianbian and expel him, they would have to negotiate with the Emperor of Qianbian. If not, if the Emperor of Qianbian was angered, the consequences would be terrifying. After the Dongxing Heaven Emperor agreed to the division of territories, if the Emperor of Qianbian established his own power, it meant that he would be able to stand against the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. In that case, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor could command the Eastern Sage Army to sweep through the territories established by the Emperor of Qianbian. In addition, as long as they didn't attack the headquarters of the Emperor of Qianbian, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor wouldn't be allowed to interfere in the battles between the powers below him. If it was a clash between two mature powers, it would be the same as well. For example, if the Dongxing Heaven Emperor wanted to expand his territory and attack the territories of other immortal emperors, it would all be done by his subordinates. Only at the very end would the immortal emperors clash with each other. If not, if the immortal emperors directly started to slaughter the lower echelons of their opponents, that would be a calamity. The entire immortal realms would be plunged into misery and suffering. No power would be able to survive. This was the rule, the hidden rule of the entire immortal realms. Once one side took the initiative to break this rule, it would be very easy for a feud to form. Ordinary people wouldn't be willing to see such a situation. There's no need for you to worry about this. The Emperor of Qianbian calmly spoke. Qianbian, if you don't establish your own power after occupying the 6 prefectures, there's no meaning in that. But if you came here purely to embarrass me for what happened in the past, aren't you lacking in magnanimity? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly snorted. Let's set the time limit of 100 years. Within 100 years, if the power I establish can't survive your Eastern Sage Army, I, the Emperor of Qianbian, will naturally give up on the 6 prefectures and return them to you. Not only that, I won't be able to enter the 13 prefectures. The Emperor of Qianbian spoke. Since this was a negotiation, there was a need for both sides to reach an agreement. Both of them were immortal emperors with extraordinary temperaments. They wouldn't do meaningless things. Only 100 years? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor asked. 100 years. The Emperor of Qianbian replied. The two of them conversed in the air, like two old friends having a heart-to-heart chat. There was no anger at all, but each and every word they spoke stirred the hearts of the experts in the Eastern Immortal City. This negotiation would directly affect the situation of the 13 prefectures for the next 100 years. In addition, from the tone of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, it seemed that he truly had the intention of handing over the 6 prefectures to the Emperor of Qianbian for 100 years. There was no more sound in the air. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor seemed to be contemplating. 100 years to him was a very short period of time. He might just need to enter closed-door seclusion a few times. The request of the Emperor of Qianbian wasn't too overboard. After all, the Emperor of Qianbian fought to a draw against him. In that case, the Emperor of Qianbian had the qualifications to negotiate with him about the division of territories. This was the authority of a peak-level expert. I promise you that the 6 prefectures of the western regions, namely the Cloud Prefecture, Thunder Prefecture, Rock Prefecture, Yu Prefecture, Supreme Moon Prefecture and Western Desert Prefecture, will be given to you for 100 years. During this period of time, my Eastern Sage Army will launch a punitive expedition against the powers you established. Within 3 months, I will force the Dongshangshan Gate to retreat from the 6 prefectures. After 3 months, the 6 prefectures of the western regions will no longer have a shadow of my Dongshangshan Gate. As for how you want to govern them, that's up to you. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the entire eastern immortal city turned silent. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor actually really gave the Emperor of Qianbian the authority to govern the 6 prefectures of the western regions for 100 years. Such boldness was simply too shocking. Although to peak-level experts, the territory of their sex was secondary and their personal strength was everything, the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor treated the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures as his base, allowing him to flourish and flourish. Now that he was willing to hand over the 6 prefectures with a single sentence, it was already sufficient to cause the hearts of people to tremble. Qin Wentian, who was below, was extremely astonished. He didn't expect that the contest of territories would be so simple and peaceful. Just a single battle and a few sentences, the 6 prefectures were given away. However, this made Qin Wentian deeply feel the prestige and authority of a peak-level expert. If the Emperor of Qianbian didn't have the strength to fight against the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, he wouldn't even have the qualifications to propose a division of territories. That would simply be courting death. Everything is based on strength. Qin Wentian silently mused. In the air, 2 silhouettes descended. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor swept his gaze over the experts at the immortal banquet as he spoke. Earlier I mentioned the 6 prefectures. All prefectures' lords, prepare to evacuate immediately and temporarily relocate to the Eastern Prefecture. Yes, Your Majesty. The immortal kings of the 6 prefectures bowed as they acknowledged the order, yet their hearts were filled with emotions. This was especially so for the Idle Cloud Immortal King of the Cloud Prefecture. He had established his roots in the Cloud Prefecture for many years, and his power was all located there. This time around, he came to participate in the immortal banquet. 3 geniuses of the Cloud Prefecture entered the top 10, and 2 of them entered the top 3. How glorious was this! But the scenes that happened next caused him to be dumbstruck. Right now, even the position of Prefecture King was temporarily stripped away, and they had to return to the Dongshangshan Gate to listen to orders. This couldn't help but to make the Idle Cloud Immortal King sigh. Truly, the affairs of the world are unpredictable, it's hard to predict. The Idle Cloud Immortal King turned his gaze in the direction of Qin Wentian and Jun Mingchen. These 2 supreme geniuses actually took the Emperor Qianbian as their master. In the future, how dazzling would they be? Most probably, it was only a matter of time before they became immortal kings. The Emperor Qianbian will receive all of you. However, he isn't someone from the Heavenly Talisman realm. After this, there will be other senior brothers from the Heavenly Talisman realm who will receive you. Hence, the matters of the Heavenly Talisman realm must not be revealed to the Emperor Qianbian. Bai Wuya's voice directly rang out in the minds of Qin Wentian and the others. This voice once again caused the hearts of Qin Wentian and the others to tremble violently as a look of astonishment appeared on their faces. The Emperor Qianbian wasn't someone from the Heavenly Talisman realm? At this moment, the Emperor Qianbian, who was in his human form, appeared in the air above them. There was no trace of the aura of the Heavenly Talisman realm at all. He really wasn't. Qin Wentian was at a loss. Could it be that his conjectures about the Heavenly Talisman realm were all wrong? How did the Heavenly Talisman realm get the Emperor Qianbian to come and receive them? However, the hearts of these people were all extraordinary characters. Their expressions instantly returned to normal. At this moment, the Emperor Qianbian appeared before them. He stared at the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor and spoke. Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, I'm bringing them away. Since you came personally, you can naturally bring them away. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor had a carefree smile on his face. It was like nothing he had experienced before could shake his state of heart. This caused Qin Wentian to have a whole new level of respect for him. He knew that he had still underestimated immortal emperors. For those who could reach this level, their state of heart must have already reached a transcendent level. Brother Dongsheng, I look forward to our next battle. The Emperor Qianbian smiled. Farewell. I'm filled with anticipation as well. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor calmly spoke. After that, A powerful surge of energy enveloped Qin Wentian and the other two. A bright light flashed as the Emperor Qianbian brought Qin Wentian, Jun Mingchen and Zi Qingxian away. He didn't bring Mo Wen along as the three of them had already been exposed as a group. As for Mo Wen, no one knew about it. After they left, the atmosphere at the immortal banquet turned silent. In the end, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor broke the silence as he spoke. Let's continue. Yes, Your Majesty. Everyone nodded. However, for the upcoming immortal banquet, the hearts of the spectators were already somewhat absent-minded. The Eastern Sage Immortal sect officially started to recruit disciples. A few rejected, but the majority of them agreed to join the Eastern Sage Immortal sect. In fact, Mo Wen was one of them. She also joined the Eastern Sage Immortal sect, and there were quite a few immortal kings who regarded her highly. Wuxia quietly watched on. The Heavenly Talisman realm had its own rules. It was impossible for people to join other powers. But Mo Wen chose to do so because if this was a mission permitted by the Heavenly Talisman realm, the rules could naturally be broken. Mo Wen's mission was to enter the Dongshengshan Gate. Qin Wentian, who had already left, had no idea about this. At this moment, a voice rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. This was a voice transmitted to him by Princess Liuli before he left. This voice was telling Qin Wentian news regarding Qing'er. City of Ancient Emperors, where is that? Qin Wentian mumbled. Princess Liuli told him that Qing'er was in the City of Ancient Emperors. Emperor Qianbian's eyes flashed with a dazzling light when he heard Qin Wentian's words. He stared at this young man who obtained the first rank in the immortal banquet at the Dongshengshan Gate. A smile appeared on his face as he spoke. Cultivate well after you return. The people in the City of Ancient Emperors are all monsters like you. Chapter 893. Qin Wentian and the other two stared at the Emperor of Qianbian only to hear Jun Mingchen asking, Senior brother Qin is the top ranker of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures while I'm the second ranker, standing at the peak. Wouldn't it be a little too exaggerated to say that everyone in the City of Ancient Emperors is on the same level as senior brother Qin? It's not exaggerated at all. The Emperor of Qianbian turned his gaze towards the horizons. His countenance was calm as he spoke. The immortal realms are boundlessly vast, experts as common as clouds and countless geniuses. Although you guys are the hegemons of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, let me ask you this. Is your opponent Gusu Tianqi weak? Naturally, he won't be weak. Jun Mingchen replied. That's right. Gusu Tianqi is already very strong. In the future, if he receives the guidance of Eastern Sage, his strength would surely rise to another level. Right now, your horizons are only limited to the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. But what about the entire immortal realms? The Emperor of Qianbian continued. The immortal realms are boundlessly vast. Although immortal emperors are incomparably tyrannical, in the perspective of the entire immortal realms, there's no lack of immortal emperors. The immortal emperors of the immortal realms all have their own children and personal disciples. These people are the true elites of the younger generations. Just take Eastern Sage as an example. He has many children and Dongxing Ting is merely one of them. Each and every one of his children is extremely outstanding, and the weakest among them wouldn't be inferior to the top rankers of this immortal banquet. Have you guys come into contact with these people before? Qin Wentian and Jun Mingchen's countenances stiffened. That's right, the immortal banquet of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures didn't include the children and disciples of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Among them, there were a few personal disciples of immortal kings who participated, and they were already considered very strong. Hua Taishu and Ruthless were both ranked within the top 10, and there were still many other personal disciples of immortal kings who didn't participate. How could they be weak? These people might be tempering themselves in various places in the immortal realms. They had never come into contact with them before. Senior, are you saying that all the peak geniuses of the immortal realms are gathered in the City of Ancient Emperors? Jun Mingchen asked, feeling some shock in his heart. What sort of place was the City of Ancient Emperors exactly? The City of Ancient Emperors is a city of ancient times. It's rumored that the founder of the City of Ancient Emperors was an ancient emperor character, and the secrets of the ancient emperor exist within. Since ancient times until now, countless people have ventured there to uncover the secrets of the city of ancient emperors. As time flowed by, the city of ancient emperors gained a brand new meaning. All the characters at the peak of the immortal realms would definitely have ventured there before. Over there, you can see geniuses everywhere. Although you guys are already extremely outstanding now, there are also descendants of immortal kings and emperors in the city of ancient emperors. The Emperor Qianbian smiled after he spoke. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness. No wonder Qing would be in the city of ancient emperors. Qing was the daughter of the Chongqing the Great. It was only natural that she would be sent here to temper herself. I'm a little excited. Jun Mengchen's eyes gleamed with excitement. As an immortal emperor character, the Emperor Qianbian's speed was incomparably fast. He stepped through the air, and after some time, they actually arrived in the airspace of the Cloud Prefecture. A silhouette hidden in the darkness appeared in the air. When this person appeared, his entire body was pitch black with only a pair of eyes exposed, giving off an illusory feeling. Is the matter completed? The voice of the black-robed figure rang out. The Emperor Qianbian nodded. Qin Wentian and Jun Mengchen obtained the first and second seat respectively. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor has also agreed to let me govern the 6 prefectures in the western regions. Leave the 3 of them to me. You can go. The black-robed figure nodded. The Emperor Qianbian glanced at Qin Wentian and the 2 others as a strange emotion flickered in his eyes. After that, he slowly walked away. He has already left. Let's return to the Heavenly Talisman realm. An instant later, the black-robed figure spoke. We pay our respects to senior brother. Qin Wentian and the 2 others naturally sensed the aura of the Heavenly Talisman realm from the black-robed figure. They were all thinking that this senior brother of theirs was truly mysterious. However, there must be a special reason for him to come into contact with characters of the Emperor Qianbian's level. In the Heavenly Talisman realm, Qin Wentian and Jun Mengchen were brought into a pagoda in the Heavenly Talisman realm. This pagoda shone with a golden light that illuminated the skies. However, one had to have a special medallion before they could enter. The black-robed figure also had such a medallion. Evidently, this mysterious senior brother of his had an extraordinary status in the Heavenly Talisman realm. On the way there, he also introduced himself to Qin Wentian and the 2 others. The black-robed figure was none other than the Supervisor General, Wuxia told him about back then. The Supervisor General would monitor everything that happened in the Heavenly Talisman realm. If there were people who violated the rules of the Heavenly Talisman realm, they would be killed by the Supervisor General. And if there were people who passed the test, the Supervisor General would also be there to monitor the results. The powerful and mysterious Heavenly Talisman realm needed the Supervisor General to monitor the movements of the disciples here. Only they would know how many experts there were in the Heavenly Talisman realm, and who they were. The Supervisor General was like an envoy of the Heavenly Talisman realm lord, maintaining order in the Heavenly Talisman realm. The reward for this mission was to be able to choose a treasure from the pagoda. Be it a cultivation art, an innate technique or a divine weapon, you could choose any one of them. The cultivation art here seems to be very powerful. Jun Mengchen swept his gaze over the surroundings. The difficulty of this mission isn't low. The rewards naturally wouldn't be too bad. Qin Wentian walked around the walls and observed what he wanted. The 9 Immortals war art can allow one to form 9 avatars to fight at the same time. At this moment, Jun Mengchen mumbled in a low voice. His eyes gleamed with a dazzling light. Senior brother, this 9 Immortals war art is so powerful. Seems like I'm truly a frog at the bottom of a well. To think that there's actually such a powerful immortal art that allows one to form 9 avatars to fight at the same time. It's equivalent to 9 of you fighting at the same time. How terrifying. Such a terrifying ability would definitely have a flaw. Let's observe it carefully. Qin Wentian walked to the side of Jun Mengchen. He had cultivated a technique that allowed him to form tens of thousands of avatars in an instant. However, using it once would consume a terrifying amount of energy. 9 Immortals War Art. The 9 avatars will consume the energy of the original body. Once the energy is depleted, the avatars will disappear. Jun Mengchen mumbled as he read the introduction of this art. However, Jun Mingchen was still somewhat tempted. At the very least, for a short period of time he would be able to form 9 avatars and attack at the same time. How powerful would that be? Senior brother, how about I choose it? Jun Mingchen's eyes shone with excitement. You're too impatient. There are still so many treasures. Why are you in such a hurry? Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Although this technique is powerful, it's useless if you are facing opponents weaker than you. If you are facing opponents with terrifying speed, the effect would be limited. Only when you are fighting against experts of similar strength would you be able to unleash its greatest effect. If you cultivate in other innate techniques, you would be able to raise your combat prowess to the next level and wouldn't lose out to the 9 Immortals' war art. You're right, let me take another look then. Jun Mingchen smiled awkwardly. His personality was a little impatient, but his senior brother Qin Wentian could see it clearly. Immortal Illusion Diagram. One can use it to create a grand illusion realm, trapping immortal foundation characters. The stronger the user, the greater the power. Jun Mingchen and Qin Wentian both felt their hearts stirring when they saw another treasure. As expected of the Heavenly Talisman realm, the treasures and manuals here were all extremely valuable. How good would it be if we could move all of them away? Jun Mingchen joked. Heavenly Tribulation Undying Dharma Body. This art can allow one to refine a supreme tribulation body, granting them boundless might. Qin Wentian and Jun Mingchen continued searching for immortal arts. The 1,000 Cauldron Treasured Tome can be used to forge immortal cauldrons. Each and every one of these cauldrons contains supreme offensive power, incomparably tyrannical. Qin Wentian felt his heart stirring when he saw an innate technique, but he still chose to endure it. The pagoda contained many innate techniques and treasures. Qin Wentian and Jun Mingchen's heartbeats quickened. There were simply too many powerful innate techniques and divine weapons that caused their hearts to palpitate. They wanted to obtain all of them. However, they could only choose one. I found it. I will cultivate this art. At this moment, Jun Mingchen finally found what he was looking for. Qin Wentian turned his gaze over, only to see Jun Mingchen standing there. On the stone wall in front of him, there was an introduction of this cultivation art. Eternal Emperor Art. This immortal art cultivates the power of an emperor, creating a 9-layered monarch physique, becoming an eternal emperor. This was an incomparably tyrannical cultivation art. There weren't many introductions, only a few words. However, Jun Mingchen seemed to have already decided to choose this art. Qin Wentian didn't say anything else and replied, "Since you have decided, let's go with it then." "MHM." Jun Mingchen nodded. After that, he closed his eyes as his consciousness rushed into the stone wall. In an instant, a tyrannical cultivation art was transmitted into his mind. Qin Wentian continued searching for what he wanted. At this moment he came to a place where there was a rather unique art, the 10,000 Laws Record. The reason why it was so unique was because of the introduction at the side. The 10,000 Laws Record isn't a cultivation art, nor is it an innate technique. One has to be cautious when cultivating it. This art is targeted towards the myriad of laws. Any innate techniques or immortal arts can be cultivated using the 10,000 Laws Record, allowing them to evolve into stronger techniques. The higher one's comprehension, the greater the improvement. For those with low comprehension, the 10,000 Laws Record would be useless, and might even affect their original cultivation. Qin Wentian couldn't help but feel shock in his heart when he saw the introduction. This art could be used to cultivate the myriad of laws, allowing immortal arts and innate techniques to evolve into stronger techniques. The higher one's comprehension, the stronger the transformation. This was simply a heaven-defying ability. However, for those with low comprehension, this 10,000 Laws Record was useless and might even affect stellar martial cultivators. Cultivating this art could even be said to be extremely risky. The Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art is used to support the Fiend God Body Refinement Art. I also have the Spirit Refinement Method, the Wind Rock Art, and the Sky Rock Talisman Bone I obtained during the Immortal Banquet. I'm already well equipped with all sorts of innate techniques and innate techniques. It's just that the grade of the Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art isn't as high as these immortal arts in front of me. But if I want to change my cultivation art, I would have to cultivate it all over again. And it would be hard for me to find one that's compatible with my current strength. Why don't I choose this 10,000 laws record? Qin Wentian silently mused. He instantly made up his mind as his eyes gleamed with sharpness. His consciousness directly entered the stone wall and instantly, countless runes floated into Qin Wentian's mind, entering his memories. This was none other than the 10,000 laws record. Chapter 894. After Qin Wentian and Jun Mingchen obtained the immortal art, they walked out of the pagoda. The supervisory general was no longer around, and Zi Qingxian had left as well. Let's go. Qin Wentian spoke. The two of them flickered, and an instant later, they saw Zi Qingxian sitting on a stone platform on a mountain peak, staring into the horizons. Senior sister. Jun Mingchen increased his speed, appearing beside Qin Wentian. Did you get the reward? Zi Qingxian inclined her head and smiled at them. Sis Qingxian. If there's another chance in the future, you will definitely be able to do it. Jun Mingchen wanted to console Zi Qingxian, only to see a self-mocking smile on Zi Qingshuan's face. Don't worry, I'm not that weak. You guys go ahead and cultivate. I'm going to enter closed-door seclusion for a period of time. We all believe in you. Qin Wentian smiled at Zi Qingxian. Zi Qingxian stretched out her hand and combed her hair. A rarely seen radiant smile appeared on her face as she stared at Qin Wentian. You have to work hard too. If not, you might be surpassed by me next time. I'm filled with anticipation. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness. Zi Qingxian stood up and departed. Let's go. I've improved quite a bit in this immortal banquet. I'm going to enter closed-door seclusion as well. Qin Wentian spoke to Jun Mingchen. The two of them then split up and began to search for their own cultivation grounds. Qin Wentian came to the top of a cliff. This place was exceedingly quiet. A light breeze caressed his body, causing his long robes to flutter. He closed his eyes and began his closed-door seclusion. The wind continued to blast against Qin Wentian's face, yet it was as though he didn't feel anything. He was like an old monk in meditation. There was nothing in the external world that could disturb him. In the external world, the news of the immortal banquet at the Dongshengshan Gate gradually circulated around the 13 prefectures at a terrifying speed. The names of Qin Wentian, Jun Mingchen, Gusu Tianqi and Hua Taishi were all known by countless experts. This was especially true for Qin Wentian and Jun Mingchen. The two of them were ranked first and second respectively, but they refused the Dongxing Heaven Emperor's invitation to become his disciple. This was because it was rumored that they had already become the disciple of the Emperor of Qianbian. They came to attend the immortal banquet just to embarrass the Dongshengshan Gate. The Emperor of Qianbian also took this opportunity to propose to the Dongxing Heaven Emperor that he should divide the 6 prefectures in the west. From now on, the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures split. The 6 prefectures of the western regions, as well as the powers under the Dongshengshan Gate, all started to retreat. The majestic residences of the prefectures were all empty, yet nobody dared to occupy them. Naturally, there was one exception. And that person was none other than the Emperor of Qianbian. 3 months later, after the Dongshengshan Gate completely retreated from the Dongshengshan Gate, the Emperor of Qianbian gathered the peak experts of the 6 prefectures in the Cloud Prefecture. All the experts came to pay their respects. This was a character who could contend against the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Even the Dongxing Heaven Emperor had no choice but to hand over the 6 prefectures to him. A banquet that was even grander compared to the once 100-year immortal banquet at the Dongshengshan Gate was held in the Cloud Prefecture. The experts of the 6 prefectures all came, and the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture were all trembling with fear. There was no other reason than because they had a grudge with Qin Wentian. And now, Qin Wentian and Jun Mingchen were already recognized as the personal disciples of the Emperor of Qianbian. Luckily, during this banquet, the silhouettes of Qin Wentian and the others couldn't be seen. The experts in the Cloud Prefecture were as common as the clouds. However, there were also undercurrents flowing in the dark. During this banquet, the Emperor of Qianbian announced the establishment of the immortal Qianbian Gate. The location of the sect would be the Prefecture King Manor of the Cloud Prefecture, and the sect would officially recruit disciples. This was a sect established by a powerful existence that could contend against the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. By right, there should be many who would respond. However, in reality, not a single major power in the 6 prefectures dared to announce their intention to join the immortal Qianbian Gate. The reason was very clear. Back then during the immortal banquet at the Dongshengsheng Gate, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor had already said that if the Emperor of Qianbian established a sect, his Eastern Sage army would definitely destroy it. Although the Emperor of Qianbian himself was incomparably powerful and could contend against the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, how could the newly established power be able to contend against the Eastern Sage army of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? An army of 1,000,000 soldiers that had been tempered for countless years wasn't a joke. They could easily sweep through any major power in the 13 prefectures. Whoever dared to join the immortal Qianbian Gate would simply be courting death. However, the changes in the Cloud Prefecture temporarily had nothing to do with Qin Wentian. Right now, he was still in closed-door seclusion in the Heavenly Talisman realm, ignoring the external affairs. In the outer periphery of the boundlessly vast immortal realms, there were countless particle worlds. They floated around the immortal realms, resembling a speck of dust in the starry space. These particle worlds were all different from each other, with a myriad of oddities. In one of the countless particle worlds, there was a mysterious region. The aura of life and death in this region was extremely dense, and it was none other than a tribe in this particle world. This tribe was named the Death God Tribe. Outside this tribe, there was a vast wilderness filled with dense death aura. Very few people would be able to pass through this place and arrive before their tribe. On the ancient gate of the tribe, there was a diagram engraved on it. It was the diagram of the Permitha flower, a symbol of death. The Permitha flower was the totem of this tribe. It possessed the power of life and death, and was extremely terrifying. In the wilderness ahead, the aura of death was as dense as ever. However, amidst the death aura, there was a faint trace of life force that was moving closer and closer to the Permitha flower tribe. A rustling sound could be heard as a figure slowly walked out from the field that was filled with an aura of death. This was the silhouette of a young man. He was clad in simple and tattered robes. The contours of his face were tough and filled with masculinity. Although he was covered in dust, it wasn't able to conceal his handsomeness. His steps were extremely steady as he moved forward, moving towards this primitive tribe. The young man moved closer and closer to the tribe. Finally, there were people who discovered his existence. Many of them flickered as they walked towards the entrance of the tribe. Their gazes were cold as they stared at the young man who just arrived. Their gazes were filled with an intense malice as they spoke in the language of this ancient tribe. The young man couldn't understand what they were saying at all. "I'm here to retrieve some Permitha flowers." The young man continued moving forward as he spoke. The people of the tribe seemed to be able to understand his words as their expressions drastically changed. Their eyes gleamed with a wild light, extremely terrifying to the extreme, as though they were filled with a thirst for blood. They all rushed towards the young man, wielding all sorts of weapons in their hands as they rushed towards him. The young man waved his hands as the experts of the tribe were all flung away. Not a single one of them was able to get close to him. He continued moving forward and soon after, he entered the tribe. More and more people from the tribe surrounded him. However, the young man merely continued moving forward calmly. Everywhere he passed by, no one could even get half a step near him. Finally, a tyrannical aura drifted over from afar. The people of the tribe all knelt on the ground, their eyes filled with respect. This was the arrival of the priest of the tribe. "Sir, who are you? What business do you have with our tribe?" One of them spoke, using the same language as the young man. "I'm here to retrieve some Permitha flowers. I hope you can make an exception." The young man clasped his hands behind his back as he stared ahead. "The blooming of the Permitha flower determines life and death. It's the totem of our tribe. How can you take it just like that?" That person spoke in a domineering manner. "Since this is the case, I can only do it myself." The young man continued moving forward. The experts in front of him all released their constellations as a phenomenon manifested in the sky. The death chi in the air was incomparably dense, and a gigantic gray silhouette could be faintly seen in the air. Those kneeling tribesmen were even more respectful than before, as though they had just seen a divinity. Their words were spoken in a language that the young man couldn't understand. However, the young man acted as though he didn't see it. These ignorant tribesmen might think that the phenomenon in the sky was the will of a divinity, but the young man understood that this was merely a constellation manifested when one's cultivation reached a certain level. In the air above him, a dazzling constellation also manifested, resembling a terrifying diagram. The tribesmen were all dumbfounded, as though they had seen an inconceivable scene. Their eyes were filled with bewilderment and bewilderment. The young man waved his hands, and as he stepped out, the constellation in the air swept out, directly blasting into the bodies of the grand priests. In just a short instant, the expressions of terror on the faces of the tribesmen changed. The young man flicked his sleeves, sending them flying through the air as he continued forward. The constellations of these tribesmen were simply too weak. They weren't his match at all. The tribesmen all had looks of terror on their faces. It was as though the conviction in their hearts had crumbled, as they fell into a state of temporary madness. Their mental state and convictions suffered an unprecedented impact. Who was the true divinity here? Nobody could obstruct the young man's footsteps. He continued on his way to the deepest parts of the tribe. In front of him, the death chi was extremely intense. Over there, the Permitha flowers bloomed, possessing their own spirituality and could determine life and death. The blooming of the Permitha flower determines life and death. How can life and death be determined? The young man mumbled. A scroll flew out as a powerful sealing energy sealed away the death chi, after which, some of the Permitha flowers were swept up and sealed within. An instant later, the silhouette of the young man flickered as he departed the area. So it turned out that this young man was none other than the other body of Qin Wentian. His name was Di Tian, and he was brought along by the protectors of the immortal palace to roam the various particle worlds, tempering himself unceasingly. Hence, Qin Wentian had experienced the tempering of two lives. He wasn't someone ordinary people could compare to. His state of mind was extraordinary, and he was incomparably resilient. The two bodies of Qin Wentian treasured time, working hard in their cultivation as they improved unceasingly. In the various worlds, they were extremely inconspicuous existences like duckweed. They could only strengthen themselves unceasingly, allowing their roots to be more stable in the various worlds. They wouldn't be uprooted by the wind, turning into dust that could be swept away by the wind. In another particle world, the night wind was cool. A beautiful silhouette whose beauty could topple empires stood before the window, staring at the green mountains and ancient trees swaying gently in the wind. She then thought back to that young man who rose up from an insignificant position, but overturned the rule of the royal sacred sect. The moonlight was poignant and beautiful, and in that place there seemed to be his radiant smile. How many nights had it been that Qin Wentian's countenance would appear together with the moonlight in that pair of beautiful eyes? Chapter 895. Time flowed by. In the vast immortal realms, 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, for years have already passed since the immortal banquet at the Dongshengshan Gate. In the Cloud Prefecture, the Emperor Qianbian has already established his 1,000 transformations army. The immortal Qianbian Gate has already begun to show its might. The experts of the 5 prefectures in the western regions all revered him as their emperor. However, there were still no major powers that took the initiative to join the immortal Qianbian Gate. The threat of the Dongshengshan Gate was still there. The Eastern Sage Army could be sent over at any moment to destroy the 1,000 Transformations Army. In the Cloud Prefecture, in the Jiangling country, in the ancient Driftsnow city, snowflakes drifted unceasingly. The 9 immortality bells chimed unceasingly as beams of resplendent light shot up into the air, entering a divine weapon that was currently being forged. In the center of the 9 immortality bells, a young man sat cross-legged. He was clad in simple white robes, yet his magnificence couldn't be concealed. At this moment, with a wave of his hand, boundless runic light gushed forth from the 9 immortality bells, entering the divine spear in the air. In an instant, immortal light gushed forth, piercing through the skies. Another immortal ranked divine weapon was forged. As expected of the disciple of the monarch, a supreme character that obtained the position of top ranker in the immortal banquet at the Dongshengshan Gate. In the surroundings of the ancient Driftsnow city, several figures stared at the young man with shock in their eyes. This white-robed young man was none other than Qin Wentian. Forging an immortal ranked weapon alone? As the disciple of the monarch, he actually used the ancient Driftsnow city to forge an immortal ranked weapon. Most probably he isn't willing to rely on his master. Many experts silently speculated. Upon seeing Qin Wentian forging an immortal ranked weapon, the people in the surroundings couldn't help but sigh in admiration at Qin Wentian's talent. When they thought back to the scenes in the ancient Driftsnow city back then, they couldn't help but sigh. Once, when Qin Wentian was in the ancient Driftsnow city, he was surrounded and hunted by the various major powers. There were countless experts who wanted to kill Qin Wentian and seize the secrets of the ancient Driftsnow city for themselves. Qin Wentian borrowed the power of the ancient Driftsnow city to kill many of them. At that time, no one would have imagined that Qin Wentian would have such achievements in the future. Right now, Qin Wentian was forging weapons in the ancient Driftsnow city. Those major powers no longer dared to antagonize him. This was the Cloud Prefecture, the territory of the Emperor Qianbian. Who would dare to touch the disciple of the legendary Emperor Qianbian? Qin Wentian soared up into the air, keeping his divine weapon. His silhouette flickered as he appeared beside a beautiful maiden. This maiden was none other than Pei Yu, who had fallen in love with the Driftsnow master. "You're not leaving?" Qin Wentian asked. This Pei Yu's obsession was too deep. Back then, he didn't expect that Pei Yu would eventually fall in love with the Driftsnow master because of the love between him and Immortal Jade. "It's fine, this place is pretty good." Pei Yu shook her head, stretching her hands out to gently stroke the falling snowflakes. "Okay then, the Driftsnow master is after all an ancient person. Don't sink too deep in love with him." Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. "I know." Pei Yu smiled at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian silently shook his head as he turned and departed. Several figures followed after Qin Wentian. After that, he took out an interspatial ring and spoke to someone beside him. "Sell these immortal ranked divine weapons, and help me exchange them for the Sky Demon Oracle Bone as well as some Yuan Meteor Stones to support my cultivation." "Right." An Immortal Foundation expert beside him nodded. He kept the interspatial ring and the group of them soared into the air, directly departing the Driftsnow city. Qin Wentian didn't turn his head back. This Driftsnow city was a moving city, the entire city was a treasure. However, he currently didn't have the strength to bring the entire Driftsnow city away. The group of them stood on a flying boat, flying at an astonishing speed as they returned to the Cloud Prefecture city. Their speed was extremely fast and it didn't take long before they arrived outside the Driftsnow city. Up ahead, a group of figures exuded a cold intent as they walked over. "Still not giving up?" Qin Wentian stared ahead as he icily spoke. During this half a year, he had suffered over 10 assassinations. The first time was the most dangerous, and after that, every time he went out, there would be experts sent by the Emperor Qianbian to protect him. "Kill." The experts in front didn't say a word. Their bodies instantly radiated an incomparably tyrannical immortal light as they rushed towards Qin Wentian. The experts around Qin Wentian all rushed out. A figure stood beside Qin Wentian, using immortal light to protect Qin Wentian's body. Lingering like ghosts, they only send out a small number of experts each time. What do they mean by this? Qin Wentian's countenance flickered with coldness. Those who came to assassinate him didn't even reveal their identities. But for those who dared to assassinate him in the 6 prefectures of the western regions, there was no need to ask further. They were definitely people from the Dongshengshan Gate. As for who gave the order to kill him, no one knew. Maybe it was Dong Xingting, the Deep Flame Immortal King, or other people from the Dongshengshan Gate who wanted his life. An intense collision instantly erupted ahead. Qin Wentian was like a spectator, it had nothing to do with him. At this moment, a formless gigantic palm imprint abruptly manifested in the air, blotting out the sun as it directly smashed towards Qin Wentian. There was no way to resist at all. "Careful!" The expert beside Qin Wentian roared. He didn't resist, instead, He pulled Qin Wentian along as he retreated, but although that gigantic palm imprint hadn't descended, it had already sealed the entire space. Qin Wentian actually felt that he couldn't move at all as the light barrier protecting him shattered. Busy. An intense burst of immortal light radiated forth. Just when the pressure was about to kill Qin Wentian, a silhouette abruptly appeared beside Qin Wentian. This silhouette was none other than the Emperor of Qianbian. Scram. The Emperor of Qianbian spat out a single word. His voice seemed to be able to bore through the void, causing the space before him to tremble violently, as though it was about to shatter. Far away, a silhouette appeared from the void. His entire body was shrouded in and out of existence. To think that the Emperor of Qianbian would actually be so protective of a disciple. The expert at the front spoke, feeling shock in his heart. The Emperor of Qianbian actually left a powerful immortal sense on Qin Wentian. In this case, there was no way for him to kill Qin Wentian. I initially thought that you guys were just messing around. But this time around, you guys actually sent out an immortal king expert proficient in spatial energy to assassinate him. Are you guys really aiming for his life? Is the Dongshengshan Gate really that fearless? The Emperor of Qianbian's immortal sense radiated a terrifying pressure as his voice turned ice cold. Emperor of Qianbian's words are too serious. We only want to see how much importance the Emperor of Qin Wentian values this disciple of yours. Would he really kill you? That person laughed. After that, the energy in the air surged and in an instant, that person's aura unceasingly drifted away, dissipating very quickly. The other experts all retreated and the battle soon calmed down. The Emperor of Qianbian didn't chase after those immortal foundation characters. What status did he have? Killing a few immortal foundation characters would only cause him to lose face. Let's return. The Emperor of Qianbian waved his hand, bringing Qin Wentian away. Not too long after, they returned to the immortal Qianbian Gate of the Cloud Prefecture. This was also the manor of the Prefecture Lord of the past. However, it has already been remodeled by the Emperor of Qianbian. The immortal sense of the Emperor of Qianbian dissipated. Qin Wentian entered the immortal gate alone. Many people bowed when they saw Qin Wentian appearing as they called out, "Young Master Qin." Qin Wentian's expression didn't change. Right now, not only in the outside world, even within the immortal Qianbian Gate, Qin Wentian was treated as the personal disciple of the Emperor of Qianbian. Also, the Emperor of Qianbian had never denied it. It was like he had tacitly agreed to it, intentionally giving Qin Wentian this identity. Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't explain it to others. Since the Emperor of Qianbian could appear at the Dongshengshan Gate to receive them back then, he definitely had an extraordinary relationship with the Heavenly Talisman Realm. Even if he didn't know the existence of the Heavenly Talisman Realm, he would definitely have a deep connection with them. Not long after, Qin Wentian stepped into the depths of the Immortal Gate. Before him, a figure was currently watering the flowers on the ground, appearing extremely carefree. Emperor Lord. Qin Wentian walked over and stared at the figure in front of him. You're back. In the future, your actions in the 6 prefectures will be restricted. Do you have any plans? The Emperor of Qianbian didn't turn back as he casually spoke. Emperor Lord, can you send me to the city of ancient emperors? Qin Wentian asked. The Emperor of Qianbian turned and stared at Qin Wentian as he smiled. Have you made up your mind? Qin Wentian nodded. Because of the uniqueness of the city of ancient emperors, there was a very high threshold to enter. Only immortal kings and emperors had the qualifications to send people into the city of ancient emperors. Hence, the vast majority of experts in the city of ancient emperors were either descendants of immortal kings or geniuses of their sections. Right now, your cultivation base has stabilized at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. After you enter the city of ancient emperors, don't come out again. It would be best if you can break through to the immortal foundation realm in the city of ancient emperors. If not, at the very least, cultivate to the peak of celestial phenomenon before coming out. The Emperor of Qianbian spoke. Right, I will remember the Emperor Lord's words. Qin Wentian nodded. When do you want to set off? The Emperor of Qianbian asked again. I still have to wait for Mengchen to return. We can set off together. Qin Wentian replied. Sure, you can go then. The Emperor of Qianbian started watering the flowers again. Qin Wentian bowed slightly before he turned and departed. Several days later, the Immortal Foundation expert from before sent the Sky Demon Oracle Bone and many Yuan Meteor Stones to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian used the Sky Demon Oracle Bone to continue his cultivation. As his strength grew stronger, his fleshly body grew more and more terrifying. In the blink of an eye, several months passed. Today, Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian entered the Thousand Transformations Immortal Palace and headed straight for the Emperor Lord's palace. Jun Mengchen directly called out, Emperor Lord, is my senior brother here? I've already called him over. The Emperor of Qianbian casually replied, Right. Jun Mengchen nodded. Not long after, Qin Wentian slowly walked over. Upon seeing Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian, a smile flickered in his eyes as he spoke. You guys are here. I guess that my senior brother should be here with the Emperor Lord. Senior brother, didn't you mention the city of ancient emperors before? Do you want to go? Jun Mengchen asked. I've been waiting for you precisely because of this matter. I've already requested the Emperor Lord to set off after you return. How about we set off now? Qin Wentian stared at the two of them as he asked. Sure, me too. Jun Mengchen smiled and nodded. Let's set off then. The Emperor of Qianbian couldn't help but to smile when he saw how eager they were. With a wave of his hand, he took a step out and directly vanished from sight. Qin Wentian and the other two also vanished from their original location. Chapter 896. The city of ancient emperors was located in the central regions of the Immortal Realms, while the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures were located in the western regions. The distance between them was boundlessly vast, and one had to traverse through boundless territories. Even for immortal emperors, if they had to rely on themselves, they would need a long time before they could reach the city of ancient emperors. On the way there, the Emperor of Qianbian had used several teleportation arrays, and even borrowed the supreme ancient teleportation arrays of immortal emperors. For immortal emperors, borrowing the teleportation arrays was a simple matter. As long as there was no grudge between them, everyone would give them face. Qin Wentian and the two others truly felt that they had traversed thousands and thousands of rivers. He was very clear that with his current cultivation base, if he wanted to head to the city of ancient emperors from the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, it would be impossible for him to advance further. For a character like the Emperor of Qianbian, every step he took would take him several months or even longer. Qin Wentian basically had no way to measure how great the disparity between them was. They weren't on the same level. Finally, the few of them arrived before a boundless sea. The waves towered up into the sky as the sound of splashing rang out unceasingly. We've arrived, the Emperor of Qianbian spoke, his words causing the expressions of Qin Wentian and the two others to stiffen. They've arrived? The city of ancient emperors was located in the middle of the sea? This is the Eastern Sea. There's a spirit in the Eastern Sea. If one isn't at the Immortal King realm, they wouldn't be able to cross this sea. The Emperor of Qianbian waved his hands, bringing the three of them along as they flew through the air. With just a single step, they were already far away from the shore. As they advanced, the waves roared and the wind howled. As time flowed by, Qin Wentian and the two others were enveloped by a screen of light. They could see a black-colored tempest enveloping them, and the entire sky was a shade of gray. Tornadoes and hurricanes could be seen, and destructive lightning could be seen flashing in the air. The scene of the tempest tearing everything apart caused their hearts to feel incomparably heavy. Although Qin Wentian and the others were being protected, they understood that if ordinary people were to step into this place, they would be directly torn apart into nothingness. However, just like that, the Thousand Transformations Emperor Lord directly stepped into the terrifying gray storm. Boundless immortal light enveloped them, as though there was an incomparably terrifying screen of lightning enveloping their bodies. Destructive energy waves unceasingly slammed into them, but the Thousand Transformations Emperor Lord acted as though nothing had happened, as he casually walked forward. The boundless ripping storm and the destructive power of lightning slammed into him, But the 1,000 Transformations Emperor Lord did not seem to be affected at all. The impact of this scene was extremely great to the three of them who were protected. When one's cultivation base reached a certain level, they would be able to contend against the heavens and earth. That boundless lightning continued to rain down, flowing into the 1,000 Transformations Emperor Lord's body, yet it was directly absorbed by him. What is that? The crowd saw that there was actually an ancient mountain that towered into the sky in the midst of the tumbling, destructive Eastern Sea. On the black ancient mountain, there was actually an old man sitting cross-legged, allowing the destructive energy to slam onto his body without moving an inch. How powerful! The hearts of Qin Wentian and the other two trembled. They continued forward, but the area of destruction seemed to be extremely vast. Finally, a ray of light appeared in front of them, as though they were about to exit this area of destruction. However, at the edge of that area, towering waves came crashing over. In the sea, a gigantic creature appeared, rushing into the air. This gigantic creature was actually a black dragon whose body was so huge that one couldn't see the end of it with a single glance. It was at least tens of thousands of meters long, and its huge eyes gave people a sense of fear. Dragon Emperor, I am the Emperor of Qianbian. I brought 3 juniors into the imperial city. The Emperor of Qianbian spoke. How's their cultivation base and talent? The black dragon roared, its voice akin to thunder, terrifying to the extreme. All of them are at the celestial phenomenon realm. Their talent is naturally outstanding. If not, this seat wouldn't have brought them here. The Emperor of Qianbian replied. Good. Celestial phenomenon realm. Enter the first level of the city of ancient emperors. Leave them to me. The black dragon opened its mouth wide, swallowing the waves. You guys cultivate well. The Dragon Emperor will naturally send you all to the city of ancient emperors. The Emperor of Qianbian spoke to Qin Wentian and the other two. With a wave of his hand, a powerful barrier of light enveloped the three of them as they floated into the black dragon's mouth. The black dragon closed its mouth. The Emperor of Qianbian turned and departed. Upon seeing this scene, the black dragon's gigantic body turned and directly dove into the boundless Eastern Sea, vanishing from sight. Qin Wentian and the other two were inside the black dragon's mouth. They could only wait quietly. After a long time, they only felt that their bodies were rapidly descending from the sky at a terrifying speed. 3 silhouettes fell from the sky, directly smashing into the ground. Thunderous rumbling sounds rang out as 3 craters appeared on the ground. This was the second time Qin Wentian experienced such a feeling. The first time was when he first arrived in the immortal realms. This time, it was when he arrived in the city of ancient emperors. How terrifying was the black dragon. With a single flick, they couldn't stop even if they wanted to. They were directly smashed into the ground, creating deep craters. The 3 of them directly rushed out from the deep crater, surveying their surroundings instantly. The Eastern Sea had already disappeared, and they were now standing on an incomparably vast land. They seemed to have been tossed into an ancient city. This vast and boundless ancient city was completely different from the cities in the outside world. This was an ancient city that was independent of the immortal realms. There were towering buildings, ancient peaks that towered into the sky, and in the distance there seemed to be a marvelous paradise and ancient mountain range. A training ground that could cause geniuses at the peak of the immortal realms to gather here. What sort of mystical place was this? Not far away, a few silhouettes could be seen walking over. One of them was a young man with long hair that draped over his shoulders. His skin was bronze in color, and he exuded an indescribably wild aura. He had a mount, a ferocious beast that resembled a lion but was even more tyrannical. It was none other than the golden Leo beast. There was also a female that was surrounded by multicolored light, exuding incomparable beauty. Her beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian and the other two as she asked, "More people have arrived in the city of ancient emperors. I wonder if they can leave this place alive. Where did the 3 of you come from?" The tone of this female was very boastful, her eyes gleaming with arrogance. Not only her, the people in the surroundings were all supreme geniuses, exuding an aura of arrogance. All of them had extraordinary statuses. Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. What about you? Where did you come from? Jun Mingchen asked. Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures, I think I've heard of it before. It should be the western region governed by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Are you guys disciples of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? The female didn't reply to Jun Mingchen's question and continued asking. No. Jun Mingchen replied. You guys aren't even disciples of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? Could it be that you are only disciples of immortal kings under the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? In that case, I wish you all the best. The female had an evil smile on her face, as though she had lost interest. She then turned and departed. The others also departed. There would often be people entering the city of ancient emperors. There was nothing strange about it. They only came here to take a look by coincidence. In the city of ancient emperors, there were quite a few descendants of immortal emperors, and even more disciples of immortal emperors. As for the disciples of immortal kings, they were all relatively ordinary existences. There were so many of them in the city of ancient emperors, it was unknown how many of such existences there were. The disciples of immortal kings have so little status? Jun Mingchen blinked. The tone of the female seemed to be filled with disdain. In the outside world, the disciples of immortal kings could already be considered extraordinary existences. For example, Hua Taishu and Ruthless, they were the disciples of immortal kings. But in the city of ancient emperors, the disciples of immortal kings were extremely ordinary existences. Because for those who could enter the city of ancient emperors, they would at least need the personal guidance of an immortal king before they could enter. Although immortal kings were considered supreme characters in the Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures, in the perspective of the entire immortal realms, although immortal kings were still considered experts, there were simply too many of them. In the city of ancient emperors, there are many descendants of immortal emperors. The disciples of immortal kings are naturally more ordinary, but everything still depends on one's strength. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Jun Mingchen nodded in agreement. One's status was the ticket to enter the city of ancient emperors. Talent and strength were the foundation of everything. It's just that when she left, the smile on her face was somewhat demonic, wishing us good luck. What did she mean by that? Zi Qingxian was extremely sensitive. This was especially so for a female as well. She could clearly sense the demonic smile on that female's face before she left. I noticed it too. The people in the city of ancient emperors are all supreme geniuses who came here to temper themselves. There might be many conflicts between them. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Let's go, let's walk around and understand this city better. MHM. Zi Qingxian nodded. After that, the three of them continued on their way. In this ancient city, there would occasionally be experts passing by. Qin Wentian already clearly discovered that these people were all at the celestial phenomenon realm. This should be the gathering place for the supreme geniuses at the celestial phenomenon realm. However, even for celestial phenomenon ascendants, these people all exuded extraordinary auras. Why is there a sect here? In front of them, there was a vast land. The buildings here were all one entity, and there were ancient mountains and pavilions. Qin Wentian and the others could see a huge arched gate with the words God Extermination Palace engraved on it. The words were filled with force, and there would occasionally be geniuses walking out from the gate, exuding an imposing aura. What an arrogant name. Jun Mingchen mumbled. God Extermination Palace, truly the arrogance of the young, not knowing the immensity of the heavens and earth. However, the people here all had a high possibility of becoming hegemons of the immortal realms in the future. From afar, the few people who just walked out seemed to have heard Jun Mingchen's words. A few sharp gazes shot over as a group of figures walked over. These people all exuded an extraordinary aura, and were extremely powerful. The person in the lead was clad in golden robes, and had a feather fan in his hands. He had a crown of feathers on his head and stared at Qin Wentian and the others as he asked, "Did you guys just enter the city of ancient emperors?" "Yes." Jun Mingchen nodded. "Why are there still sects in the city of ancient emperors? Is it very strange?" That person laughed. The city of ancient emperors is a gathering place for geniuses. The people here would all form small groups and become brothers or friends. In the future, after they exit the city of ancient emperors, They would all become major characters of the immortal realms. Once they established their own sect, they would be able to dominate an entire region. Qin Wentian's expression turned cold. That's true. The people here were all peak-level geniuses. Many of them would have extremely high achievements in the future. By forming friendships here, when they grew stronger in the future, it would be extremely terrifying if they joined forces. This was especially so in addition to their backgrounds. Do you guys want to join my god extermination palace? That person smiled as he asked. Nope, we just arrived here. Let's observe for a while longer. Jun Mingchen shook his head. Oh. That young man laughed. Since you guys aren't willing to join, hand over all your interspatial rings first. Qin Wentian saw the meaningful smiles on the faces of these people. He instantly understood what the young woman meant earlier. This place where geniuses gathered wasn't suitable for mediocre people. Chapter 897. Qin Wentian surveyed the 5 before him. The young man with the crown on his head had a cultivation base at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon. As for the other 4, 3 of them were at the 7th level while the last was at the 6th level. The 5 of them all exuded an extraordinary aura. In addition, their sects were located in this place. If they clashed against each other, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. Not joining our god extermination palace? Are we going to do this? Qin Wentian asked. Since we aren't friends, we are merely strangers. You guys just arrived here, and might not understand the rules of the city of ancient emperors. In this city, competition is a common thing. If not, how can you improve? Today, our god extermination palace shall give you all a lesson. The young man had a carefree smile on his face. Plundering the interspatial rings of others was a common thing in the city of ancient emperors. Those who could come here would all have plenty of treasures on them. Naturally, it was very rare for people in the city of ancient emperors to kill each other. After all, many of these people were descendants or disciples of major characters. Everyone would show mercy and wouldn't form a life-and-death grudge. In addition, many geniuses had immortal senses left behind by their seniors. Once they encountered a life-and-death crisis, their immortal senses would be activated. As for competition, it was a form of tempering. Those major characters were very relaxed in leaving their juniors here. Even if they had to suffer some setbacks, it wouldn't be too bad for them. Let's go. Qin Wentian spoke. After that, the 3 of them departed. Where do you think you are going? The young man with the crown on his head laughed. After that, the group of them chased after them as their auras gushed forth. That crowned young man radiated a dazzling white light as a constellation manifested in the air. This constellation seemed to be a combination constellation. A gigantic figure that resembled a divinity wielded a golden spear and stood in the air. Terrifying light revolved around him, resembling countless golden roulette wheels, exuding an indomitable aura. Stay here. The young man pointed the golden spear in his hand forward. In an instant, countless golden wheels shot out like dazzling rays of golden light, destroying everything in their path. They were like endless golden lightning that could even tear space apart. The other 4 experts also unleashed their powerful auras as well as their constellations. One of them was able to control his constellation, causing an ancient tree king to extend up into the sky, wanting to engulf everything in its path, sealing this entire space. At the same instant, Qin Wentian and the other 2 released their constellations as well as their tyrannical auras. Terrifying rumbling sounds echoed out as Qin Wentian's body abruptly grew to a height of 10 meters. His entire body shone with a dazzling luster as runic light circulated around it, resembling an armor of fiend gods. Behind his back, a pair of golden rock wings appeared as a resplendent long spear appeared in his hands. His suppression annihilation constellation appeared as a towering suppression, might gush forth from him. Golden bodies rushed out and charged towards the incoming golden light. Rumbling sounds rang out incessantly, and the golden wheels were all shattered and destroyed. Qin Wentian's body suddenly turned around. In an instant, the shadow of a golden rock appeared in the void. There seemed to be a terrifying shadow of a heavenly rock in the sky, incomparably gorgeous. How fast! The crowned expert in the air froze when he saw the shadow of the heavenly rock. Qin Wentian's silhouette had already vanished. The long spear in his hands directly pierced towards one of his companions, the 7th-level ascendant who unleashed his suppression constellation. The speed of this attack was simply too fast. Qin Wentian was like a heavenly rock, his gigantic body and the gigantic long spear in his hands erupted forth with unparalleled might. Just this strike alone was enough to kill an expert on the same level as him. However, the people in the city of ancient emperors were all geniuses. When that expert felt the immense pressure, countless tree vines shot towards Qin Wentian's long spear, enveloping everything. However, how terrifying was this spear strike of Qin Wentian? The fiend god heavenly suppression art was infused into his spear, containing a fearsome suppressive might. Not only that, the spear also contained the insights Qin Wentian had comprehended. Resplendent runic light flashed, containing a formless law energy, causing the tree vines to shatter and dissipate into nothingness. A hole appeared at the tip of the spear as the long spear pierced through. Busy. The long spear abruptly halted, stopping right in front of his opponent. Time seemed to have frozen in that instant. The crowned expert in the air descended, and when he saw this scene, his countenance changed. Senior Brother Qin is awesome. The people from the God Extermination Palace are merely at this level. Jun Mengchen spoke with cold arrogance when he saw this scene. These geniuses from the city of ancient emperors were all very arrogant. Weren't the 3 of them the same as well? With just a single strike, Qin Wentian suppressed a genius who was proficient in control at the same level as him. The eyes of this genius were still filled with reluctance. The speed of Qin Wentian's attack was too fast, and his spear technique was too tyrannical. He didn't even have time to unleash his own strength to defend before he was already suppressed. It's common for geniuses to fight each other in the city of ancient emperors. It's common for people to seize treasures, but it's extremely rare for them to kill each other and form a life and death grudge. Although you guys are new here, I'm sure you should be able to understand this. The crowned expert spoke. Being able to suppress someone from my God Extermination Palace with a single strike, you can consider yourself powerful. The 3 of you can leave now. You are right, seizing treasures is very common. Qin Wentian laughed. Before this, you guys wanted to seize our interspatial rings. Now that I've suppressed one of you, you want us to leave? What do you want? That crowned expert coldly laughed. Hand over all your interspatial rings. Jun Mengchen roared. What a joke. The people in the city of ancient emperors aren't threatened. You want all of our interspatial rings because you controlled a single person? This is impossible. If you guys want to do this, you can do whatever you want to him. That crowned expert spoke with cold arrogance. Hand over all your interspatial rings. As the price, the 3 of you will immediately retreat. Qin Wentian calmly spoke, his words causing the expressions of the crowned expert to turn ashen. Friends, this is your first time here in the city of ancient emperors. It's fine if you can retreat safely, but don't go too far. The treasures of the God Extermination Palace will only burn your hands. That crowned expert threatened. Don't force me to act. Qin Wentian's spear shimmered with terrifying runic light, causing the expressions of the experts from the God Extermination Palace to turn heavy. That crowned expert spoke. Remember this. After speaking, he waved his hands as the 4 of them turned and departed. As for those who were restrained by Qin Wentian, they all took out their interspatial rings and handed them over to Qin Wentian. Let's go. After Qin Wentian received the interspatial rings, the 3 of them flashed as they sped away with lightning speed. After they left, a group of figures from the God Extermination Palace flew over. When they saw the 3 of them leaving, their eyes flickered with coldness. Qin Wentian's group of 3 sped through the air, moving about the city. We need a map, Zi Qingxian spoke. The 3 of them would need to stay in the city of ancient emperors for a very long period of time. Qin Wentian nodded. He also thought of this. The 3 of them stopped a passerby and asked, Sir, may I ask where we can find a map of the city of ancient emperors? Let's go to the Ancient Emperor Tower. It's the largest transaction ground in the city of ancient emperors, and the tallest building you can see. You can find anything you want there. The passerby laughed. Qin Wentian thanked him. The three of them turned their gazes to the horizons, and indeed, there was an extremely tall building there. The three of them then directly flew over. There were many people in the ancient Emperor Tower. When Qin Wentian entered, there was a beautiful maiden who came to receive them. She stared at Qin Wentian's group and asked, "What do you guys need?" "We need a map of the city of ancient emperors." Qin Wentian replied. The maiden smiled. She took out 3 jade slips and passed them to the three of them. "There's a map of the city of ancient emperors in there. I'm sure the three of you have just entered the city of ancient emperors, right? In the future, if you need any cultivation arts or innate techniques, or if you want to trade, you can come here." This ancient emperor tower was also founded by a genius who came here to cultivate? Jun Mengchen curiously asked. The maiden smiled but didn't reply. A look of contemplation appeared on Qin Wentian's face. The geniuses in the city of ancient emperors all cultivated peak-level cultivation arts and innate techniques, and the treasures they had were all extremely valuable as well. If they all traded with the ancient emperor tower, the number of cultivation arts and innate techniques collected by the ancient emperor tower would surely be terrifying. Maybe a major power in the immortal realms had already stretched their hands into the city of ancient emperors. What power is the God Extermination Palace? Qin Wentian curiously asked. The God Extermination Palace is a sect founded by a genius in the city of ancient emperors. Their sect leader is the son of an immortal emperor, and is a ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings. However, his ranking is quite low, and the God Extermination Palace can be considered one of the weaker sects in the city of ancient emperors. The maiden smiled as she explained, not showing any signs of impatience. Immortal Ascension rankings? Jun Mengchen's expression flickered as he asked, "What's that?" The vast majority of those who come to the city of ancient emperors are here for the sake of tempering themselves. This is a place where geniuses gather, and the immortal emperors and immortal kings of the immortal realms would naturally send them here for them to ascend to the immortal realm. Hence, many geniuses would stay here for a long period of time. The Immortal Ascension Rankings is a ranking of the geniuses in the city of ancient emperors, and there are a total of 360 rankers in it. The sect leader of the God Extermination Palace is one of them, the maiden explained. After that, he took out 3 jade slips and passed them to the three of them. These are the rankings of the Immortal Ascension Rankings. Similarly, they are provided for free. Qin Wentian received it and swept it with his perception. Instantly, 360 names appeared in his mind as his body involuntarily trembled. Number 5 on the Immortal Ascension Rankings, Qing daughter of Changqing the Great of the Evergreen Kingdom. Her cultivation base is at the 9th level of Celestial Phenomenon, and she's an innate immortal king. Within the Jade Slip, there was an introduction of Qing, ranked number 5 on the Immortal Ascension Rankings. Qing Qin Wentian mumbled in a low voice. The maiden smiled. Sir, do you also know that Princess Qing is from the Evergreen Kingdom? Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures. Qin Wentian continued. But I only know of Princess Qing. Is she very famous in the city of ancient emperors? The people in the city of ancient emperors are all supreme geniuses. For those who can enter the top 100 of the Immortal Ascension Rankings, it means that their rankings are among the top in the entire immortal realms. From this, one can very well imagine the weight of the number 5 ranker. Naturally, the Immortal Ascension Rankings are constantly changing, and what you see is only a temporary ranking. But being able to enter the top 100 is already sufficient to prove one's strength. Not only that, Princess Qing has been in the city of ancient emperors for 7 years now, and her ranking has always been climbing, never falling back. Many people believe that Princess Qing has a high chance of becoming the top 3 rankers in the Immortal Ascension Rankings. The maiden smiled. Qin Wentian had a contemplative look on his face. Chapter 898. Upon seeing the expression on Qin Wentian's face, the maiden beside him smiled. You're secretly in love with Princess Qing, Qin Wentian smiled and nodded. I guess so. Where can I find her? I don't know about that. Princess Qing or didn't join any sect or power in the city of ancient emperors, and her whereabouts are unknown. Given how vast the city of ancient emperors is, how would it be so easy to find her? The maiden shook her head. However, as one of the 3 most outstanding beauties in the city of ancient emperors, Princess Qing, has many pursuers. Qin Wentian smiled. Many thanks. Who are the 3 most outstanding beauties in the city of ancient emperors? Jun Mingchen seemed to be interested as he asked. The daughter of Chongqing the Great, Princess Qing, ranked number 5 in the Immortal Ascension rankings. There's another person who has been famous for a long time, and has been tempering herself in the city of ancient emperors for many years. The Holy Maiden of the Namhuang clan, Namhuang Yunxi, ranked number 3 in the Immortal Ascension rankings. This maiden is the successor of the Namhuang clan, a descendant of the Southern Phoenix matriarch, and a famous ice beauty of the Namhuang clan. The maiden smiled as she introduced. Qin Wentian, and the other 2 saw the name of the number 3 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings. She was none other than Namhuang Yunxi, the Holy Maiden of the Namhuang clan, at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, and possessing nirvanic blood. There's also the number 6 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings, Xiaoling Yue. She's the daughter of the Xiao Emperor, and is a famous beauty in the northern regions of the Immortal Realms. Her cultivation base is also at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. The maiden introduced the last person. Qin Wentian, and the others discovered that the top rankers of the Immortal Ascension rankings were all descendants of immortal emperors. As for the other rankers, their cultivation bases were all at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. Those who could be ranked on the Immortal Ascension rankings were all terrifying geniuses. It was simply too difficult if one wanted to jump levels and ascend the rankings. After all, the rankings were determined by strength. Which of the 3 is the most beautiful? Jun Mingchen laughed, his words causing Zi Qingxian to glare at him. But since he's secretly in love with Princess Qing'er, you guys better not antagonize Xiaoling Yue. It's rumored that Xiaoling Yue was surpassed by Princess Qing'er in the Immortal Ascension rankings. Xiaoling Yue has a grudge in her heart, and wanted to find Princess Qing'er for a battle to prove herself. Sadly, Princess Qing'er doesn't seem to have such an interest, and the 2 of them have never met before. Xiaoling Yue has always been searching for Princess Qing'er, but she hasn't found her yet. I'd like to meet them. Jun Mingchen's eyes gleamed with excitement, but Qin Wentian said to the woman, "Thank you. Don't worry about it, it's nothing much." The woman smiled and sent Qin Wentian and the others out of the ancient emperor tower. She was extremely polite. After Qin Wentian exited the tower, he turned his gaze to the horizons and drew in a deep breath. Qing'er was also in this ancient city. It was just that when his perception seeped into the map, he discovered that the vastness of the city of ancient emperors was far beyond his imagination. It was like a particle world of its own. Right now, the location they were in right now could be considered to be extremely remote, near the outskirts of the city. In the outskirts of the city of ancient emperors, there were forests and ancient mountains. "Senior brother, are you lovers with Princess Qing?" Jun Mingchen curiously asked. He had never asked Qin Wentian about this before. Qin Wentian nodded, a smile could be seen in his eyes. Although he temporarily had no way to find Qing'er, at the very least, he knew that she was in the same city as him. Ever since they parted in the particle world, he had never been so close to Qing'er before. Princess Qing'er must be very outstanding. Jun Mingchen also smiled when he saw the smile on Qin Wentian's face. Not just outstanding. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the sky. Sunlight cascaded down, illuminating his handsome countenance. Zi Qingxian, who was at the side, was filled with curiosity when she saw the radiant smile on Qin Wentian's face. She was also filled with curiosity towards the daughter of the evergreen immortal emperor, Princess Qing'er. It was very rare for her to see such an expression on Qin Wentian's face. The radiant smile on his face contained traces of longing. At this moment, Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. He abruptly turned his gaze towards a direction not far away, only to see a few figures staring at them as they sped over. One of them had a pair of golden eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything. When he saw Qin Wentian, his eyes gradually returned to normal, but they still gave off a sense of sharpness. Beside this person was none other than the young man from the God Extermination Palace. Other than the two of them, there were two other young geniuses who were also speeding over. Let's go. Qin Wentian and the other two instantly soared up into the air, flying towards the horizons. That pair of eyes are extremely evil. That person must have tracked us. A pair of divine hawk wings appeared behind Zi Qingshuan's back, as she moved with lightning speed. Among the three of them, Jun Mengchen's speed was the slowest. After all, his cultivation base was the lowest, at the peak of the 6th level of celestial phenomenon. Qin Wentian and Zi Qingshuan's cultivation base were the same, at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out as the blood in Qin Wentian's body seethed. A sharp whistling sound rang out as a destructive might gushed forth. A demonic beast directly flew out from Qin Wentian's body, its wings blotting out the sun. Its entire body shone with a terrifying fiery light, as well as a faint black glow. Terrifying demonic light flowed unceasingly from its body. This demonic beast was none other than Purgatory, which had always existed in Qin Wentian's blood. The Purgatory vermilion bird circled in the air above Qin Wentian, seemingly extremely excited. Let's go up. Qin Wentian stepped out as the three of them mounted Purgatory's back. Purgatory flapped its wings ferociously as it sped through the air with lightning speed. A vermilion bird? Very good. The eyes of the young man with the jade crown flickered with excitement. These newcomers actually dared to snatch the disciples of their God Extermination Palace? How audacious! Today they would definitely teach them an unforgettable lesson. Senior brother, do we fight? Jun Mingchen roared. The four of them are all at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon, and the auras they give me are all extremely majestic. Their bloodlines are extremely powerful, and there are no weaklings in the city of ancient emperors. It would be difficult to fight them head-on. Qin Wentian spoke in a loud voice. After all, Jun Mingchen's current cultivation base was only at the 6th level of celestial phenomenon. Jumping 2 levels to fight against the geniuses of the city of ancient emperors. This was something impossible. The higher one's cultivation base was, the stronger they would be, nearing immortal foundation. Storm augmentation. That expert with the jade crown roared. Among the four of them, one of them released his constellation as a destructive tornado enveloped the four of them, transforming into fearsome wings of wind. Instantly, the speed of the four of them who were already extremely fast increased explosively as they chased after Qin Wentian and the others. Qin Wentian waved his hand as a pure white demonic beast appeared. Qin Wentian directly slapped it. Little rascal, it's time to wake up. You woke me up again? You are the bastard. The pitiful little fellow scratched his eyes. His actions were extremely terrifying. It was as though he couldn't wake up at all. Ever since he started sleeping with the medicine sovereign, he would sleep for several years at a time. I've been using my bloodline to nourish you until you are white and chubby. It's time for you to do something. I'll leave the constellations to you. Qin Wentian spoke. Oh. Little rascal rubbed his eyes. After which his body expanded in size, instantly transforming into a ferocious demonic beast. His forehead gleamed with a terrifying golden light, resembling a fearsome demon king. He stood at the tail of Purgatory and roared in rage. A moment later, a terrifying vortex appeared in the sky as the Tempest constellation was sucked into it. What demonic beast is this? It can even devour the energy of constellations? The countenance of the young man who used the storm augmentation technique changed as he stared at the transformed little rascal. Was this demonic beast a heaven-devouring beast? It could even devour celestial phenomenon? Not long after, the tempest around them transformed from a heaven-shaking and earth-shattering might into gusts of gentle wind. Little rascal, what's your current cultivation base? Qin Wentian asked. I don't know. Little rascal shook his head, only to see the young man with the jade crown releasing his constellation. Numerous golden wheels frenziedly shot out, aiming for Little Rascal. Little Rascal howled in rage. It opened its gigantic mouth again and swallowed the golden roulette, causing Qin Wentian to be so shocked that he was speechless. Was Little Rascal already so powerful? Seems like his blood wasn't wasted. Regardless of Little Rascal or Purgatory, They were both nurtured by Qin Wentian using his own bloodline. Seems like we can fight now. Qin Wentian mumbled. Prepare for battle. Right. Jun Mingchen nodded. His aura erupted forth as his constellation was released. Zi Qingxian transformed into a divine falcon as a violet gold light shone with incomparable brilliance. Purgatory abruptly halted. The three of them turned around at the same time. Qin Wentian's body expanded to 10 meters as he released his suppression annihilation astral soul. Instantly, a terrifying golden silhouette manifested, manifesting a heaven-shaking suppressive might. The godlike figure in the sky above the expert wearing the jade crown pierced out with his long spear. Incomparably huge golden wheels flew out, and with a loud rumble, a golden brilliance radiated out, destroying everything in its path. Beside him was an 8th-level ascendant. His entire body was covered in muscular lines and he was 3 meters tall. His eyes were a shade of dark green, and when he released his constellation, a terrifying green-colored monster manifested behind him. This monster had many terrifying green arms that were filled with boundless strength. These arms expanded explosively and directly grabbed towards Qin Wentian's group of 3, as well as the 2 demonic beasts. There was another person who released a terrifying Tempest constellation. Within the Tempest, there was even a thunderous sword might that directly tore apart space, sweeping outwards. A chaotic battle erupted at any moment. The 4 8th-level ascendants were all supremely terrifying characters. Little Rascal roared in rage once more. His body grew even larger, similar to Qin Wentian, transforming into a gigantic demon. He opened his mouth and howled, resembling a demon king. The devouring vortex grew larger and larger, devouring all the attacks from the constellations. This demonic beast is immune to constellation attacks, and can even devour constellation energy. We need to use brute force to attack it. The crowned young man spoke. The space above Purgatory was filled with terrifying Purgatory devil flames, blasting downwards. Zi Qingxian blasted out a boundless killing might from a divine falcon, while Jun Mingchen unleashed his tyrannical might, exuding a towering aura of an emperor. At this instant, the battle that erupted caused the entire space to turn violent. Many people below noticed this and all inclined their heads as expressions of interest appeared on their faces, wanting to watch a good show. Chapter 899. The people in the city of ancient emperors were all celestial phenomenon ascendants of the same generation. There would always be conflicts, and there were even times when a sect war broke out. Hence, the spectators were all very calm when they saw the battle in the air. Nobody felt anything was strange. They were only wondering why these people were fighting. This was a place within the city. There shouldn't be any ancient sects here. The number of people on both sides was limited, and it didn't seem like a sect war. There was only one female, and although she was beautiful, she was also participating in the battle. Those 2 demonic beasts aren't bad at all. One of them is a mutated vermilion bird, while the other is a descendant of some unknown ancient demon. It actually has the ability to devour celestial constellations, and is immune to the attacks of constellations. If one wants to fight against this demonic beast, they would have to fight in close combat. Someone spoke in a low voice. Seems like this is a battle for treasures. In this city, it was common for experts to rob the weak. In addition, just these 2 demonic beasts alone were enough to attract the attention of many. The battle was extremely intense. Qin Wentian directly faced off against that crowned expert. Behind the 2 of them, there were constellations of divinity that frenziedly rushed towards each other. Countless golden wheels flew out from the crowned expert's constellation, slicing through space, aiming for Qin Wentian. At the same time, that divinity wielded a long spear and stabbed out. The long spear expanded explosively, wanting to nail Qin Wentian to death in the air, its might incomparably ferocious. Qin Wentian's physique was gigantic, and his entire body was shimmering with a fiend god armor. A pair of wings sprouted out from his back and a long spear in his hands. His speed was as fast as lightning, akin to a heavenly rock soaring through the skies, shuttling through the countless wheels. Behind him, boundless suppressive might blasted out, unceasingly shattering the wheels in front of him. A terrifying long spear stabbed out, piercing through the heavens and earth with boundless might. The tip of the spear shone with a dazzling light, capable of suppressing everything. The crowned expert slashed out with his spear, slashing apart the space. At the same time, boundless golden light transformed into an incomparably gigantic golden wheel that acted like a shield, blocking in front of him. Boom! The spear hit the wheel, and a terrifying sound was heard. Cracks appeared on the golden wheel, and it collapsed immediately. However, the spear also threatened Qin Wentian at the same time. His body flickered again, and he was incredibly fast. In just an instant, Qin Wentian's figure transformed into many afterimages. His long spear continued to attack, and every attack was as fast as lightning. However, it was capable of suppressing the heavens and the earth, and its might was boundless. The jade-crowned expert stood where he was and continued to resist. His defense was continuously broken, but he was completely restricted. He couldn't help but have an ugly expression on his face. Interesting, this man's cultivation base is only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon, yet he can fight so violently against an 8th level ascendant. Someone in the crowd had an expression of interest on his face when they saw the battle between Qin Wentian and the crowned expert. That crowned expert seemed to be enraged. He roared in rage as a boundless light radiated from him. In an instant, numerous terrifying long spears appeared in the air, as the might of his constellation was unleashed to the extreme. With a single palm strike, the millions of long spears pierced through the heavens and earth, exuding a might that could shake the heavens. Not only did they shoot towards Qin Wentian, the remaining long spears also shot towards Zi Qingxian and Jun Mengchen. Impudent! Qin Wentian roared. The terrifying demonic blood in his body towered up into the skies. His eyes were like that of a demon as he unceasingly unleashed the 3rd level of the battle art. In an instant, the battle light radiating from him grew even more blinding. Kill! The crowned expert was also enraged. He was like a divinity as countless golden long spears pierced through the air, shooting towards Qin Wentian. At this moment, Qin Wentian's body transformed into a myriad of clones. Countless Qin Wentians stabbed out with their spears at the same time. The terrifying spear light could suppress everything, and under the might of his constellation, the suppression force was tyrannical to the extreme. Everywhere the spear light passed by, the golden spear light would shatter into pieces. The countenance of the crowned young man changed. Golden blood circulated in his veins as he lifted his palms to attack. A golden heavenly rampart appeared before him, blocking all attacks. Terrifying runic light circulated around the rampart, as rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly. Finally, the heavenly rampart shattered apart as a sure-kill spear appeared in the eyes of the crowned young man. This was none other than Qin Wentian's suppression spear. As it pierced out, the entire space turned incomparably heavy. Swishing sounds rang out as the power of the crowned young man's bloodline gushed forth. A long spear formed from countless golden runes appeared in his hands as boundless astral energy cascaded down on him. When his spear pierced out, it contained a destructive might so great that it felt as though a black hole was about to appear. No one could block it. Boom! The long spear and the long spear collided together as a fearsome destructive might erupted forth. Boundless energies clashed against each other, causing the long spear and the long spear in their hands to explode at the same time, unable to withstand the fearsome destructive might. Qin Wentian retreated slightly while the crowned expert was flung through the air. With a groan of misery, he felt as though there was a primordial beast energy ravaging his body, wanting to destroy his life force. However, he still endured it and didn't cough out blood. The other experts were also madly fighting. Zi Qingxian, Purgatory and Jun Mingchen each fought against one of their opponents. Little Rascal was frenziedly devouring the constellations of his opponents, weakening the strength of their attacks. Out of the 3 battles, Purgatory's battle with her opponent was the most intense. Although Jun Mingchen's attacks were powerful, he who was 2 levels lower than her was still suppressed by that expert with the myriad of green arms. However, Little Rascal would occasionally rush out with lightning speed, letting out a roar of rage as it swallowed the energy from his opponent's constellation, causing those arms to vanish. Vile beast. That green-eyed young man saw little rascal moving between the three battles, devouring their attacks unceasingly. He couldn't help but to feel rage burning in his heart. Stepping out, he dashed towards little rascal as countless arms enveloped the area, locking down the entire space. Little rascal soared up into the air and used his huge mouth to bite off the arm of his opponent. However, he only saw the palms of his opponent blasting out an ink-green palm strike, blasting onto little rascal's gigantic body. The ink-green palm imprints seemed to contain a powerful corrosive energy, causing little rascal to howl in pain. At this moment, a sharp sword slashed down from the sky, directly slicing apart those green tentacles. Qin Wentian's silhouette appeared as he blasted out with both palms. A terrifying palm imprint capable of plucking the sun, moon and constellations manifested, gushing towards his opponent. Runic light circulated within the palm imprints, containing a supreme suppressive might. The constellation behind the green-eyed young man shimmered with a dazzling light as millions of arms blasted out at the same time. Rumble. That expert retreated as he stared at Qin Wentian's silhouette. After which, the crowned young man also walked over, standing in front of him. "Little rascal, are you all right?" Qin Wentian asked. "I'm fine, I'm just scratching an itch." Little rascal spoke in a baby-like voice. His voice didn't seem to match his gigantic body at all. A dazzling white light radiated from him, expelling the corrosive energy from his body. A gust of wind gusted by as Zi Qingxian also arrived here. Purgatory hovered in the air, while the other four experts were also gathered together. Both sides stood in opposition. "Luckily I didn't join your god extermination palace. What a bunch of trash." For 8th level ascendants are merely SOSO. Jun Mengchen roared, causing the eyes of the people below to brighten. So it turned out that they were from the god extermination palace. 4 8th level ascendants from the god extermination palace actually fought to a draw? Their opponent doesn't even have a single 8th level ascendant. Someone below laughed, causing the countenances of the experts from the god extermination palace to turn unsightly to behold. "It's just a warm-up. If you guys take the initiative to hand over your interspatial rings and the 2 vile beasts to us, we will let this matter rest." The crowned young man maintained his elegance as he spoke to Qin Wentian and the others. "Warm up? Earlier you were forced back by my senior brother, right? You guys are a level higher? What a joke. Seems like your god extermination palace only dares to deal with those with lower cultivation bases. Such a sect can actually exist in the city of ancient emperors? How ironic. Your mouth is so smelly. I will let you know the consequences of your words." That green-eyed young man coldly spoke. "What's going on?" A voice drifted over from afar. More and more experts soared through the air and flew over. The experts from the god extermination palace laughed coldly in their hearts when they saw the newcomers. There are a few newcomers who are extremely arrogant, snatching the interspatial rings of our disciples. I'm currently teaching them a lesson. They're together? Jun Mengchen's expression turned heavy. There were quite a few experts from the god extermination palace, all of them exuding an extraordinary aura. From afar, there were still a few more people flying over, and the person in the middle had a terrifying gaze. "Palace Lord is here as well." The crowned young man stared at the elegant young man as he spoke. The Palace Lord of the god extermination palace, Ji Lanshan. The eyes of everyone gleamed with sharpness as they stared at the elegant young man in luxurious robes. Ji Lanshan, the Palace Lord of the god extermination palace. His cultivation base is at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, and he's also an expert on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Experts on the Immortal Ascension rankings represented the strongest geniuses in the city of ancient emperors. Although Ji Lanshan's ranking was at the bottom, he could still be considered a character whose radiance shone brightly in the perspective of the entire city of ancient emperors. The instant he appeared, the gazes of everyone turned to him. Qin Wentian and the others instantly knew who this person was when they heard the low murmurs of the crowd. In the Jade Slip, Ji Lanshan was ranked 321st on the Immortal Ascension rankings, and was the Palace Lord of the God Extermination Palace. He cultivated the 1,000 Talismans Immortal Tome, and his attacks were extremely powerful. Ji Lanshan swept his gaze over, staring at Qin Wentian and the others as he felt some unhappiness in his heart. 4 8th-level ascendants of the God Extermination Palace actually couldn't even deal with these few people? This would undoubtedly weaken the prestige of the God Extermination Palace. Naturally, as the Palace Lord, he naturally had to protect the God Extermination Palace. Seeing that you guys are newcomers, I won't be calculative with you. Since you guys snatched the interspatial rings of my disciples, hand over everything you have and apologize. I will allow you all to leave. Ji Lanshan stood in the air as he spoke, his tone tyrannical, leaving no room for doubt. The words of experts on the Immortal Ascension rankings still carried a lot of weight in the city of ancient emperors. Chapter 900. Qin Wentian and the other two turned their gazes to Ji Lanshan. Ji Lanshan's tone was calm, and from his words, it was as though Qin Wentian and the others were the ones who took the initiative to antagonize the God Extermination Palace. However, since this Ji Lanshan was an expert from the God Extermination Palace, he would naturally protect the God Extermination Palace. With a single sentence, he directly splashed dirty water on them, wanting them to hand over all their interspatial rings and apologize. After that, Ji Lanshan allowed them to leave, as though it was a gift from him. Such a situation might seem laughable, but in truth, this was a common occurrence everywhere in the immortal realms. The strong preyed on the weak. Nothing could be more normal. You already said that we are newcomers, yet you say that we snatched the interspatial rings of the disciples of your God Extermination Palace? How laughable are your words! Or should I say, how weak are the people of your God Extermination Palace? Qin Wentian laughed mockingly. How could the people below not understand this logic? But so what if they understood? The most important thing was the result. Qin Wentian's group was clearly not strong enough. They could only be bullied. This was the price of being a newcomer, especially for newcomers who didn't know how to endure. It was all too common for them to be bullied in the city of ancient emperors. Since you guys are unwilling, you guys can do it yourself. Ji Lanshan glanced at the experts beside him. Momentarily, these experts all stepped out, surrounding Qin Wentian, Yan Liqiang and the two demonic beasts. A terrifying might gushed forth. Yet Ji Lanshan's countenance was incomparably calm. He stared at Qin Wentian as he spoke. It's still not too late. Apologize? Dream on. Jun Mingchen coldly spoke. Given the personalities of the three of them, how could they obediently hand over their interspatial rings and apologize? That was a humiliation. Even if they were defeated, they had to do it openly. Very good. Newcomers, let me remind you guys. It's best not to use immortal-ranked weapons in the city of ancient emperors. Once an immortal-ranked weapon appears, no one would be able to control the situation. I have to remind you guys about this. After all, there's no one in this city who lacks immortal-ranked treasures. Ji Lanshan calmly spoke. Qin Wentian and the others also understood that Ji Lanshan was speaking the truth. He had an immortal-ranked weapon, but the people in the city of ancient emperors were all descendants of immortal kings and emperors. Which of them didn't have powerful treasures? In the battles in the city of ancient emperors, everyone would hold back and not take the lives of their opponents. After all, they were all characters with extraordinary statuses, and there was no need for them to form a life and death grudge with their elders. Also, once everyone used their immortal-ranked weapons, it would be extremely difficult to control them. After all, their strength was limited, and they had no way to fully control treasures that were too powerful. Not using immortal-ranked weapons was a widely accepted rule in the city of ancient emperors. Take him down. Ji Lanshan faintly spoke. Qin Wentian and the rest turned ashen. The situation was extremely disadvantageous to them. In such a situation, they would definitely lose. Kid, let me play with you again. That gigantic green-eyed constellation acted. Countless green arms erupted forth, grabbing towards Jun Mingchen. Jun Mingchen soared up into the air as a king armor covered his body. The clear sky worldly diagram shone resplendently, causing the eyes of many to be filled with shock when they stared at him. Die! Jun Mingchen howled in rage as boundless energy gushed forth. His king qi transformed into a war chariot that soared through the air, clashing madly against the green arms. However, there were too many of them and Jun Mengchen's cultivation base was still too low. It was still somewhat difficult for him to defend against them. Little Rascal's silhouette flashed, transforming into a gigantic ancient devouring constellation. However, the crowned expert brandished his golden spear and dashed towards Little Rascal. Boundless golden light gushed forth unceasingly, terrifying to the extreme. This person didn't choose to fight against Qin Wentian, because he had his own plans. Before this, when he clashed against Qin Wentian, he was actually forced back by Qin Wentian despite having a cultivation base at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon. If he fought against Qin Wentian again now, he would truly lose face. Rumble. Qin Wentian's entire body shimmered with fiend god light. His body instantly expanded to a height of 700 meters, resembling a giant. Both his palms shimmered with terrifying runic light as he directly blasted out towards the experts from the God Extermination Palace. His terrifying physique and fearsome palm imprints contained a heaven-shaking might. The countenances of the experts from the God Extermination Palace drastically changed as they retreated with explosive speed. However, that palm imprint was simply too gigantic. It directly bore down on them as terrifying rumbling sounds echoed out. The experts from the God Extermination Palace all condensed their constellations to clash against Qin Wentian, shattering Qin Wentian's palm imprint. However, they were also forced back in an instant. What innate technique is this? The power is so terrifying. The crowd stared at Qin Wentian. The constellation around his gigantic body was also extremely terrifying. These newbies aren't simple at all. The spectators below were all taken aback when they saw this scene. Qin Wentian seemed to be exuding a fearsome battle art, as well as a demonic light. A terrifying ancient demon king appeared, revolving around his gigantic body. Those experts from the God Extermination Palace stared at Qin Wentian as trepidation appeared in their hearts. Ji Lanshan furrowed his brows. After which, a tyrannical aura gushed forth from him as he took a step forward. Staring at the other experts moving towards Qin Wentian, he spoke, "Leave this to me." He actually acted personally. The crowd was somewhat taken aback. Ji Lanshan, who was ranked on the Immortal Ascension rankings, actually wanted to personally deal with a 7th level ascendant? How interesting. Ji Lanshan, who cultivated the 1,000 Talismans Immortal Tome, instantly radiated boundless runic light as a constellation manifested above him. This constellation was akin to a boundless starry sky, and the boundless runic light flashed frenziedly, transforming into the form of an incomparably gigantic giant. Ji Lanshan's 1,000 Talismans constellation can be fused at will, creating many types of supremely powerful attacks. Ji Lanshan is precisely relying on the 1,000 Talismans Immortal Tome as well as his terrifying constellation, allowing him to be ranked on the Immortal Ascension rankings. His cultivation base hasn't reached the peak of celestial phenomenon yet, so his ranking still has the potential to rise. The spectators mused silently when they saw this scene. Ji Lanshan was a descendant of an immortal emperor. This 1,000 Talismans Immortal Tome was also a supremely powerful cultivation art cultivated by that immortal emperor. The 1,000 Talisman giant lifted its foot and stomped towards Qin Wentian. Numerous runic inscriptions interweaved together to form a gigantic cauldron as it smashed towards Qin Wentian. This gigantic cauldron shone with a golden light, capable of destroying everything in its path. Qin Wentian roared in rage when he felt the immense pressure. His arms expanded as he blasted out a terrifying star-seizing palm imprint. Cultivating the 10,000 laws record caused his attacks to be even more terrifying, truly possessing a heaven-shaking might, capable of destroying everything. Boom! The ancient cauldron collided with the palm imprint, directly shattering the palm imprint as it continued on its way towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian continuously blasted out with his palms, causing thunderous rumbling sounds to echo unceasingly as more palm imprints blasted out. However, the consumption of energy in his body was also extremely fast. Right now, Qin Wentian's attacking state could be said to be extremely powerful. In such a state, he had to expend a terrifying amount of energy to maintain it. It was only because he had cultivated 9 Euamphus, that he had several times more astral energy compared to cultivators at the same level as him. Ji Lanshan was 2 levels higher than him. The amount of astral energy in his body was naturally even more majestic. Qin Wentian finally shattered the gigantic cauldron. However, he only saw Ji Lanshan's body floating in the air, appearing in the center of his constellation. With a wave of his hand, a gigantic constellation wielded a 1,000-talisman sword that exuded a terrifying might as it directly cleaved down towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance turned ashen. Ji Lanshan was the son of an immortal emperor and had outstanding talent. He was also a ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings and was extremely tyrannical. When he slashed out with his sword, it felt as though space itself was about to be severed. Qin Wentian waved both his hands as boundless suppressive silhouettes soared up into the air, frenziedly attacking the 1,000-talisman sword. However, they were all directly severed apart by a single slash. Not only that, the speed of that slash was extremely fast, instantly arriving before Qin Wentian. The ancient demon king on Qin Wentian's body roared in rage as he raised both his palms up to the sky, directly grabbing onto the gigantic sword. Puchi. The 1,000-talisman sword slashed down. The ancient demon king was also about to be severed. Qin Wentian explosively retreated, only to see the 1,000-talisman sword streaking past him. The sword light left behind a sword wound on his body, and even though his armor was covered in boundless runic light, fresh blood still flowed from the wound. Not bad, you are able to block a sword of mine. Ji Lanshan stood in his constellation, staring at Qin Wentian as he spoke with cold arrogance. A cold smile flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. 9th level of celestial phenomenon, an expert on the Immortal Ascension rankings, and the son of an immortal emperor? Yet you are merely SOSO. Ji Lanshan started, after which he replied, how arrogant. But as someone who has already been defeated, how can you still be so arrogant? Truly ridiculous. The current you is still not my opponent. Qin Wentian was speechless. He turned his head only to see Jun Mingchen and Zi Qingxian in imminent danger. In fact, Jun Mingchen was already injured. If it wasn't for the fact that his opponent didn't kill him, he would have already died. Bang. Another explosive sound rang out. Jun Mingchen's body ruthlessly slammed into Qin Wentian. He coughed as his countenance turned ashen. He roared in rage. These bastards, let's fight it out with them. Why must you do this? A wise man submits to circumstances. Ji Lanshan coldly spoke, sweeping his gaze over to the others. How could these people withstand the attacks of the God Extermination Palace? It's over, we can't win against them. Little rascal hopped onto Qin Wentian's shoulder as he mumbled in a depressed manner. There were injuries all over his body as well. You still don't know what's good for you? That crowned expert floated in the air as he coldly laughed. The experts from the God Extermination Palace got closer and closer, staring at Qin Wentian like they were staring at their prey. The strength of these newbies isn't bad, but sadly they are all going to die here. The spectators below discussed. Even Ji Lanshan has personally acted. How can they not die? However, this is also the rule of the city of ancient emperors. How many geniuses from the outside world have to learn how to be low profile when they come here? Many descendants of immortal emperors have been snatched away by others before. They can only snatch them back after they grow stronger. Everyone laughed and chatted, but Qin Wentian and the others were filled with reluctance. Upon seeing the reluctance on their faces, Ji Lanshan stepped out once more as his 1,000-talisman sword appeared. He coldly laughed. Seems like we are not ruthless enough. Since this is the case, let's leave a deeper impression on them. Boom. From Qin Wentian's body, a terrifying energy started to burn as a fearsome might engulfed the area, causing Ji Lanshan, who was in front, to stiffen. After which, a sword slaughter constellation manifested as boundless sword might flowed into Qin Wentian's body. Chapter 901. The aura radiating from Qin Wentian instantly grew incomparably powerful. His entire body was enveloped in a layer of resplendent white flames as runic inscriptions circulated around him. But what was even more terrifying was the sword qi contained within him. All the energy in his body was being ignited, as though it was all for the sake of unleashing that supreme sword might. MHM. Ji Lanshan's countenance changed as he stared at Qin Wentian in bewilderment. At this moment, Qin Wentian's aura skyrocketed, becoming even more powerful. This was especially so for the sword might radiating from him. It was madly growing stronger. What's going on? The countenances of the geniuses from the God Extermination Palace all changed as they stared at Qin Wentian with bewilderment in their eyes. Woo-woo. Little rascal on Qin Wentian's shoulder let out a whimper. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it spoke in a baby voice. This bunch of bastards, kill them all. Purgatory in the air let out a sorrowful howl. It circled above Qin Wentian's head, and after which, its body transformed into a beam of blood-colored light that directly shot towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian seemed to understand the sorrow in Purgatory's voice. He felt extremely moved in his heart. Purgatory was a life form that was nurtured by Qin Wentian using his bloodline. Purgatory already had a boundless yearning for him. Now that it knew that Qin Wentian was igniting his energy, it actually summoned Qin Wentian to enter his bloodline and allow him to ignite his own energy. How can I ignite your energy? Qin Wentian silently mused. After which, swishing sounds rang out as a beam of blood-colored light shot up into the skies. Purgatory directly rushed into his body. However, Qin Wentian didn't want to borrow the energy of Purgatory. The him now was no longer the same as before. Back then when he used the immortal vanquishing swordplay, there was a possibility that he might lose his life because his strength was too weak. But things were different now. His cultivation base was already at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon, and his bloodline was much stronger than before. You're burning your own power to strengthen your attack. By now, Ji Lanshan had already understood what was going on. He frowned slightly. This brewing energy was extremely terrifying. Qin Wentian was burning himself. Such a sacred art was extremely powerful, but its weakness was also extremely obvious. Qin Wentian would first injure himself before injuring his opponent. After a single strike, he might be completely paralyzed and at the mercy of his opponent. Unless one was in a desperate situation, no one would use such a sacred art. Was this guy risking his life? Swish, swish, swish. Whistling sounds filled the air as boundless sword chi converged on Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian pointed his finger forward and pressed it into the air. In an instant, numerous terrifying formless swords appeared in front of his finger. These swords were formed from towering sword intents, and that terrifying lacerating force seemed to be able to tear the void apart. The entire world seemed to be enveloped by this sword intent, and everyone from the God Extermination Palace could feel the destructive force contained within. Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian both felt shock in their hearts as they stared at Qin Wentian. They didn't know that Qin Wentian had cultivated such a tyrannical sacred art. At this moment, Qin Wentian's body reverted back to his normal size. His entire body was clad in armor of flowing light as a pair of golden rock wings appeared behind his back. He stared at Ji Lanshan. Extreme beneath immortality. Ji Lanshan stared at Qin Wentian as he spoke. Even if you ignite your own power to strengthen your attack, you still wouldn't be able to break through the barrier of immortality. Those below immortality are all mortals. My cultivation base at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon has already reached the peak of mortals. Even if you reached the extreme beneath immortality, you still wouldn't be able to threaten my life. At the same time, you are merely exhausting your own strength and won't be able to last long. The immortal foundation realm was a watershed. For those below immortal realm, it was impossible for them to reach the immortal foundation realm just by relying on secret arts. At the very most, they would only be able to reach the extreme beneath immortality. The immortal vanquishing swordplay was an immortal foundation art. Those at the immortal foundation realm would be able to unleash the strongest might. However, Qin Wentian hadn't reached the immortal foundation realm yet. Hence, it was impossible for him to unleash might that surpassed immortals. Ji Lanshan was right. The experts on the immortal ascension rankings were all geniuses who stood at the very peak of the immortal realms. They themselves already stood at the peak beneath immortals. Hence, this ranking was named the Immortal Ascension Rankings. Ji Lanshan's aura gushed forth frenziedly as his 1,000 talismans constellation manifested. Countless runes transformed into a dazzling 1,000 talismans shield that revolved around him, as though it was to defend against Qin Wentian's attacks. At the same time, his 1,000 talismans sword remained in his hand as he stared at Qin Wentian. Just give up. If you want me to give up, I have no way to control the might of this art. You said that the city of ancient emperors doesn't need immortal ranked weapons. I can do that. However, once this art is unleashed, I won't be able to control it. If you force me to fight, I will definitely unleash it. At that time, whether you can block it or not, you will have to ask yourself. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. The energy in his body was still burning as a stifling sword might gushed forth. All the spectators could clearly feel it. Even for the spectators on the ground, they felt as though they were enveloped by this sword might. Their entire bodies were filled with boundless sword qi, truly at the extreme beneath immortality. Although Ji Lanshan wasn't too far away from immortality, in truth, he was still quite a distance away from it. If not, how could he be ranked 321st in the Immortal Ascension rankings? There were still 320 people in front of him. Only those people in front of him had the qualifications to say that they had come into contact with the extreme beneath immortality. Sharp whistling sounds rang out unceasingly. That was the sound of the sword intent grinding against the 1,000 talismans. Such ear-piercing sounds caused Ji Lanshan to fall silent. Qin Wentian's finger was placed in the air. It was as though the moment his finger landed, the boundless sword might would be able to condense into a single sword. There was only a single sword, but the might of this single sword strike was the most terrifying. I can drag things out with you. But how long can you burn your energy for? Ji Lanshan coldly spoke. You guys sit on Little Rascal's back. Little Rascal and I have a telepathic connection. He knows what I'm thinking about. Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to Jun Mingchen and Zi Qingxian. The two of them nodded and sat on Little Rascal's back. Busy. Qin Wentian stepped out step by step, moving towards Ji Lanshan. This scene caused Ji Lanshan to furrow his brows. When he saw Qin Wentian advancing towards him, he actually took a step back. A cold smile could be seen on Qin Wentian's face. A raging wind gusted by. The shadow of a golden rock appeared around Qin Wentian, resembling a heavenly rock. He instantly turned and sped towards another expert from the God Extermination Palace. Careful. Ji Lanshan spoke. However, the speed of Qin Wentian's golden rock form was simply too fast. In just an instant he already appeared before one of the experts. His finger pressed out in the air, and in just an instant, that expert only felt his entire body being enveloped by a supreme sword intent. If Qin Wentian's finger pressed down, that expert would die on the spot. Little Rascal indeed had a telepathic connection with Qin Wentian. When Qin Wentian first moved, Little Rascal had already followed closely behind Qin Wentian, guarding against the experts from the God Extermination Palace. This is a robbery. Hand over all your interspatial rings. Little Rascal's immature voice rang out, sounding somewhat adorable. That baleful body of his swayed as he appeared before that expert and stretched out his claws. This scene was somewhat comical, but that expert had no way to laugh. His life was being controlled by Little Rascal. Behind him a powerful aura gushed over. Although Qin Wentian didn't turn his head, he directly spoke. I don't wish to unleash this attack. Don't touch my bottom line, or I don't know what the consequences would be. As the sound of his voice faded, Ji Lanshan and the experts from the God Extermination Palace all halted their steps. That expert who was being threatened turned ashen. He took out all his interspatial rings and placed them in Little Rascal's claws. Since he was captured, he could only admit defeat. Why are you so stupid? Little Rascal stared at that young man as he lazily cursed. His other claw directly slammed out, slamming into that young man's body. Cracking sounds rang out unceasingly as that young man was directly flung through the air. It was unknown how many bones in that young man's body had been broken by that attack. Impudent. Ji Lanshan coldly spoke. Little Rascal turned his gaze over. Who told you guys to bully this Bao with numbers? This demonic beast is interesting. The experts below laughed. Qin Wentian glanced at the experts from the God Extermination Palace, only to see that all of them were radiating tyrannical auras, as though they were prepared for another sneak attack from him. Even at this stage, you are still trying to infuriate us. I can't help but to say that you are the truly stupid one. Ji Lanshan stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't hear anything and directly climbed onto Little Rascal's back. Little Rascal's wings flapped as it soared into the distance. Qin Wentian was still facing the experts from the God Extermination Palace. The sword might radiating from him was as strong as ever, enveloping this entire space. Do you think you can escape? Ji Lanshan and the others stepped out. A group of experts from the God Extermination Palace sped through the air, chasing after them. He truly wanted to see how long Qin Wentian could last. A group of experts sped through the city of ancient emperors. The energy in Qin Wentian's body burned unceasingly as Ji Lanshan and the others followed closely behind. In fact, they didn't even retract their constellations, preparing to launch an attack at any moment. Ji Lanshan of the Immortal Ascension rankings led the experts from the God Extermination Palace to chase after 3 of us who just entered the city of ancient emperors. You guys can really afford to lose so much face. Qin Wentian mocked. His voice rumbled through the air, echoing through the city below. After that, countless people inclined their heads and stared at the sky. Everywhere they passed by, there would be experts with expressions of interest on their faces. Ji Lanshan of the Immortal Ascension rankings actually chased after a few newbies. Not only that, he doesn't even dare to act. Many geniuses from the city of ancient emperors soared up into the air, following after Qin Wentian and the others. It was as though they were all people who wanted to see the world in chaos. Ji Lanshan's countenance gradually turned sinister. The number of geniuses spectating grew more and more, causing him to feel as though he was about to lose face. If you continue to flee, don't blame me for being ruthless when you exhaust all your energy. Ji Lanshan roared in rage, his voice filled with a threatening intent. Qin Wentian was facing the experts who were chasing after him. His countenance was cold, and his eyes gleamed with sharpness. He didn't expect that he would encounter people from the God Extermination Palace the moment he arrived here. Today, I shall make your God Extermination Palace lose all face. Qin Wentian icily spoke. Little Rascal, get down. Little Rascal descended from the air, directly landing on a vast area on the ground. This scene caused expressions of interest to appear on the faces of the spectators. Could it be that this young man who ignited his own energy to unleash his sword might still have a trump card? Chapter 902. Qin Wentian descended from the air. His entire body shone with a terrifying resplendent light. With a rumbling sound, his feet landed on the ground and instantly, the crowd only saw numerous runic inscriptions appearing on the ground where Qin Wentian stood, instantly transforming into a diagram. A fearsome astral energy gushed forth as a powerful suppression aura permeated the atmosphere. MHM. Ji Lanshan floated in the air. Before this, he wasn't in a hurry to act because he knew that Qin Wentian would sooner or later exhaust all of his energy. It wouldn't be too late to act at that time. There was no need for him to directly attack and infuriate Qin Wentian. But at this moment, Qin Wentian chose to descend to the ground. Divine inscriptions could be seen beneath his feet. Qin Wentian's constellation appeared. Numerous gigantic hammers appeared in the air, smashing downwards unceasingly, causing the earth to tremble. Very swiftly, a gigantic diagram appeared on the ground. This diagram was 3-dimensional, and there seemed to be an incomparably tyrannical energy gushing forth from it. Inscribing divine inscriptions. Every time he acts, he would be able to inscribe powerful divine inscriptions on the ground. He is also a divine inscriptionist. The experts here all had expressions of interest on their faces. They didn't expect Qin Wentian to have such an ability. He ignited his own energy to unleash a powerful attack, causing the experts from the God Extermination Palace to not dare to act recklessly while he himself started to inscribe formations. Should we attack and interrupt him? Someone asked. The experts from the God Extermination Palace all stood in different directions, staring at Ji Lanshan. He was the pillar of support. You guys retreat, let me handle it. Ji Lanshan waved his hands as he spoke in a magnanimous manner. If it was others in his place, they wouldn't be able to withstand Qin Wentian's immortal vanquishing swordplay. Only he had the strength to defend against it. Right. The experts from the God Extermination Palace nodded. Since Qin Wentian was a divine inscriptionist grandmaster, they couldn't allow him to continue inscribing formations. Ji Lanshan stood arrogantly in the air. The terrifying 1,000 talismans on his body flickered, illuminating the sky. The 1,000 talismans sword was formed from countless interweaving runes as it directly slashed out. That sword strike that could cleave the heavens and earth apart slashed towards Qin Wentian. They couldn't give Qin Wentian any more time. Qin Wentian soared up into the air. His finger pressed downwards and in an instant, a boundless amount of sword chi erupted forth, transforming into a supreme windstorm. Boundless sword might converged at the same time as the fearsome windstorm gushed forth, slashing apart the void. The 1,000 talisman sword was directly slashed apart by Qin Wentian's supreme sword might. Qin Wentian continued forward, his eyes flashed with madness as he dashed towards Ji Lanshan. The sword chi in his hand had yet to dissipate. Ji Lanshan frowned as he retreated. At this moment, the threat of Qin Wentian was too great. There was no need for him to risk his life against him. Rumbling sounds rang out as the hammers continued smashing into the ground. An incomparably gigantic diagram gradually formed as a surge of energy shot up into the sky. It was as though a divine-like giant stood up from the diagram. Its entire body shone with boundless light. This is. The countenances of those experts from the God Extermination Palace turned incredibly unsightly. What a powerful divine inscription's grand formation. It seemed somewhat similar to Qin Wentian's constellation. And at this moment, Qin Wentian coldly laughed as he stared at Ji Lanshan. After which, he retreated as the sword chi in his hand gradually dissipated. Momentarily, the energy in his body stopped burning, but he had already expended more than half of his energy. He could only feel his entire body weakening. After returning to the center of the divine inscription's grand formation, Qin Wentian inclined his head as rumbling sounds echoed out. His body grew to a size of 700 meters, and when he released his astral souls, it was as though he had fused as one with the divine inscription's grand formation. Even though we just entered the city of ancient emperors, the highest cultivation base we have is only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. Your God Extermination Palace won't be able to do anything to us. Qin Wentian arrogantly spoke, his voice echoing through the air. The countenances of Ji Lanshan and the experts from the God Extermination Palace were extremely unsightly to behold. This battle has already reached such a stage. Ji Lanshan, who was a ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings, was leading his group of experts in pursuit. If they still couldn't capture Qin Wentian and the others, they would truly lose all their face. Ji Lanshan walked step by step towards Qin Wentian. At this moment, Qin Wentian had already retracted the might of the immortal vanquishing swordplay. The threat he posed was greatly reduced, allowing the experts from the God Extermination Palace to surround him. Since you guys refused to listen to reason, we can only act. Ji Lanshan spoke with cold arrogance. Long-range attacks. Without the threat of the immortal vanquishing swordplay, everyone moved closer and gathered their constellations as a terrifying tempest engulfed the area. Kill! That crowned expert roared in rage. A gigantic long spear directly pierced through the air, shooting towards Qin Wentian and the others. Another expert blasted out countless golden fist imprints, causing rumbling sounds to echo in the air as all of them blasted towards Qin Wentian and the others. There were also experts who blasted out a myriad of arms. There were also experts who blasted out life-seizing palm imprints that blotted out the sky. All sorts of chaotic chi currents swept over, wanting to destroy Qin Wentian and the others. Ji Lanshan's countenance was cold. His 1,000 talisman constellation manifested a terrifying 1,000 talisman imprint. With a roar of rage, this incomparably gigantic 1,000 talisman imprint shone with a destructive light as it blasted towards Qin Wentian. In an extremely short instant, all sorts of terrifying attacks blasted towards Qin Wentian. From this, One could see that this time around, Qin Wentian had truly enraged the experts of the God Extermination Palace. If Qin Wentian and the others didn't have the strength to defend against such an attack, they might really die here unless they took out their immortal rank treasures. Qin Wentian roared in rage. His terrifying body stomped on the ground as a feeling of the heavens collapsing and the earth shattering could be felt. Boundless runic light flowed as a myriad of golden bodies shot up into the sky, revolving around Qin Wentian's body. At this moment, Qin Wentian and the gigantic divinity shadow in the air seemed to have fused together as one. The boundless golden bodies took him as the center. Go! Qin Wentian roared in rage. Momentarily, the violet golden figures all blasted out. At this instant, Qin Wentian was completely engulfed by the violet golden light. Boom boom boom. The heavens and earth trembled as the tyrannical attacks clashed against each other in the air, exuding a destructive might. Qin Wentian stared at Ji Lanshan's attack as he lifted his palms and blasted them out. A supreme suppressive might clashed against the incomparably gigantic Thousand Talisman imprint, causing both attacks to explode in the air. Qin Wentian's constellation seemed to have completely fused together with the divine inscription's grand formation. This entire space seemed to have transformed into a starry sky as countless golden figures manifested, floating in the air, causing those who saw this scene to sigh in amazement. What a powerful divine inscription's grand formation. Seems like this newbie isn't simple. He's only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon, yet he dares to contend against the God Extermination Palace and face an expert on the Immortal Ascension rankings, Ji Lanshan. If he also breaks through to the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, he would definitely be ranked in the Immortal Ascension rankings. All sorts of chaotic attacks blasted towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his palm and grabbed out in a certain direction. The countless golden figures moved together with his palm, destroying everything in its path. That terrifying palm imprint directly blasted towards an expert from the God Extermination Palace. That expert roared in rage as he resisted, but as the palm imprint slammed down, a thunderous boom rang out as his body was directly flung through the air, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Each of his attacks are comparable to the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. Borrowing the power of the divine inscription's grand formation, this young man's strength is so overwhelming that he can directly be ranked in the Immortal Ascension rankings. However, I don't think the Immortal Ascension rankings would consider the strength he gained after borrowing the power of the divine inscription's grand formation. The battle here was extremely fascinating. More and more experts gathered over. Ji Lanshan and the other experts from the God Extermination Palace unceasingly attacked Qin Wentian. Yet no one was able to take down Qin Wentian and the others. On the contrary, because the experts from the God Extermination Palace were caught off guard, they were blasted far away by Qin Wentian's attacks and suffered heavy injuries. How powerful, what a bastard! Little Rascal's eyes shone with a bright light when he saw Qin Wentian's divine might. Senior brother Qin, did you comprehend this divine inscription's grand formation using your own constellation? His comprehension abilities are simply too powerful. I'm far from being his match. Jun Mingchen spoke in a low voice. What was laughable was that despite his combat prowess, he actually couldn't help Qin Wentian at all in the city of ancient emperors. Seems like he still had to work hard to raise his cultivation base. He cultivated the 10,000 laws record. I heard him say that the 10,000 laws record can allow him to better comprehend the energy he cultivates. In addition to his high comprehension abilities and powerful divine inscriptions, it's not strange for him to be able to achieve such a feat. Zi Qingxian spoke in a low voice. The chaotic attacks didn't stop for a long time. The experts from the God Extermination Palace had no way to defeat Qin Wentian. This was because when he borrowed the power of the divine inscription's grand formation, the consumption of energy on Qin Wentian's body was extremely small. Yet his attacks were so powerful that it was ridiculous. Ji Lanshan has suffered a setback. At this moment, a young man in the surroundings laughed as he stared at the battle. He can't even take down a 7th level ascendant. No matter what, this Ji Lanshan is still a descendant of an immortal emperor. He has truly lost all faith this time around. The spectators discussed. At this moment, Several extraordinary silhouettes flew over from another direction. Each and every one of them was breathtakingly beautiful. This was especially so for the one in the center. It was a female. This female was clad in a resplendent tight-fitting red robe, perfectly accentuating her alluring figure. In addition, she was filled with vitality, so breathtaking that no one dared to look directly into her beautiful eyes. This female's skin was whiter than snow, as though a gentle breeze could break it. Her figure was graceful, and when she appeared, countless gazes turned to her. It was as though the attraction of this battle wasn't as great as this female's. She actually appeared here. Someone exclaimed in shock. Xiaolingyue is truly beautiful. Sadly, there are so many people pursuing her that they could form a long line. The Xiao sect she established is filled with flower protectors, with experts as common as the clouds. Just the number of rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings alone is already over 10. Naturally, Xiaolingyue isn't just a flower vase. Her personal strength is the strongest in the Xiao sect. I wonder what sort of character would be worthy of such a beauty. Someone sighed. Xiaolingyue, the daughter of the Xiao Emperor of the northern region of the Immortal Realms. She was a famous beauty and was ranked number 6 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. It was unknown how many males would feel ashamed when they saw her. At this moment, Xiaolingyue was actually paying attention to this battle. Chapter 903. The appearance of a ranker in the top 10 of the Immortal Ascension rankings would naturally cause a commotion. Everyone would instantly notice them. In addition, Xiaolingyue was not only a ranker in the top 10, she was also a supreme beauty. However, no one dared to strike up a conversation with her. Just the young men beside Xiaolingyue alone were all rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings, and their rankings were higher than Ji Lanshan. This Ji Lanshan actually dares to establish his own sect? He's simply courting humiliation. At this moment, a young man spoke, his tone filled with disdain for the God Extermination Palace. Although his words were ear-piercing, the truth was that the God Extermination Palace only had one ranker, Ji Lanshan. In front of a power like the Xiao sect, there was simply no way they could compare. However, this fellow's formations aren't weak at all. He's actually only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. A person stared at Qin Wentian with interest. Lingyue, are you interested in this man? The young man beside Xiaolingyue asked. Xiaolingyue's countenance was calm. There were no fluctuations in her beautiful eyes. She quietly stared at the battle before her as she replied, "Let's watch first." The few of them nodded and accompanied Xiaolingyue to watch the battle. The battle continued unceasingly. Qin Wentian grew more and more ferocious as he fought, not showing any signs of weakness at all. The might of his formations towered up into the sky, and on the other hand, other than Ji Lanshan, who could defend against the attacks of the formations, the other experts from the God Extermination Palace were all struggling. If this continued, they still wouldn't be able to take down Qin Wentian. Ji Lanshan, that's enough. At this moment, a young man beside Xiaolingyue crossed his arms in front of his chest as he spoke. A moment later, Ji Lanshan retreated, ceasing the battle. The experts from the God Extermination Palace also retreated. Qin Wentian also didn't continue, and the violent battle abruptly ceased. Ji Lanshan turned his gaze to Xiaolingyue and the others. His countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. This battle was truly too embarrassing. Not only did you fail to take down a newcomer, you even injured your own people. Ji Lanshan, if I were you, I wouldn't continue to stay here. The young man with his hands crossed in front of his chest said with a faint smile. His tone seemed to contain some mockery. Ji Lanshan's gaze was sharp as he stared at the person who spoke. What does it have to do with you? Of course it has nothing to do with me. I'm not the one who lost face, the man replied indifferently. Xiaolingyue turned her gaze onto Ji Lanshan as she spoke. You guys can leave first. Ji Lanshan glanced at Xiaolingyue. Although he was a ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings, it was impossible for him to contend against Xiaolingyue and her group. His eyes flashed with rage as he turned to Qin Wentian. I, Ji Lanshan, will remember the matters today. Are you intending to gather everyone from the god-exterminating palace to deal with me? Qin Wentian coldly replied. Everyone could easily understand the sarcasm in his words. The god-extermination palace had to mobilize all the experts in their sect to deal with a 7th-level ascendant. Retreat. Ji Lanshan didn't have the face to stay here any longer. He gave the order to leave, and at that moment, the experts from the god-extermination palace all left. A stray dog. The immature voice of Little Rascal rang out. Momentarily, the experts from the god-extermination palace all had black lines on their faces. They wanted nothing more than to cook Little Rascal and eat him up. Qin Wentian's silhouette reverted back to his normal size. The robes he wore shimmered with astral light. This was the robes of a divine weapon, and was extremely flexible. However, he still took out a long robe from his interspatial ring and donned it. After which, he turned his gaze to Xiaoling Yue. What a beautiful woman! Qin Wentian silently praised in his heart. This Xiaoling Yue was indeed a rare beauty. Although her perfect figure was extremely alluring, that demeanor she exuded made it so that no one dared to have any thoughts of blasphemy. Her eyes were extremely beautiful, and when she stared at Qin Wentian, it was as though her gaze could hook away the souls of people. Your proficiency in formations isn't bad, and your combat prowess should be very strong as well. It's just that your cultivation base is on the lower side. If it wasn't for your formations, I'm afraid you would be at a disadvantage against Ji Lanshan. Xiaoling Yue continued walking forward. Her steps were graceful, causing people to be mesmerized. Her eyes were fixed on Qin Wentian. She then spoke to Qin Wentian. If this is your first time in the city of ancient emperors, why don't you all join a power? My Xiao sect is sufficient to protect you. If you all join, Ji Lanshan wouldn't dare to harass you. Xiaoling Yue actually took the initiative to invite him. Seems like she values his capabilities. A look of bewilderment appeared on someone's face. It was extremely hard to reject an invitation from a beauty, right? Hee, even I don't have such treatment. That young man with his arms crossed in front of his chest spoke in a low voice. Leng Yue is interested in his formations? However, in the city of ancient emperors, strength is still the most important thing. Formations are just a minor Dao. A young man standing at the side spoke, his tone filled with coldness. Xiao sect. Qin Wentian recalled the information in the jade slip. The Xiao sect seemed to be a sect founded by the daughter of the Xiao emperor, Xiaoling Yue. The beauty before him should be none other than Xiaoling Yue, one of the 3 beauties. Before this, that young woman said that because Qing Er's ranking surpassed her, Xiaoling Yue had always wanted to fight with Qing Er to prove herself. Hence, Qin Wentian paid special attention to Xiaoling Yue's information. Such a breathtaking beauty was actually surpassed by Qing Er in the Immortal Ascension rankings. Seems like Qing Er was getting more and more outstanding. In the past, I was the one who delayed Qing Er's cultivation. Qin Wentian silently mused. When they were in the particle world, Qing Er had always been by his side, silently protecting him. Clearly, this had greatly delayed his own cultivation. The path of cultivation wasn't something that could be accomplished in a single step. One had to truly immerse themselves in it. Qing Er had an extremely rare physique, and there was also a mysterious and powerful energy in her body. Qin Wentian didn't find it strange at all that her performance was outstanding after arriving in the immortal realms. Before this, it was precisely because we rejected the God Extermination Palace that we were pursued by them. Zi Qingxian spoke. However, Xiaoling Yue didn't even look at her. Her beautiful eyes were still fixated on Qin Wentian, that young man who dared to look her in the eyes. From those eyes, Xiaoling Yue could actually see a hint of emotion. Although she felt some disdain in her heart, she was also secretly satisfied. There were many people who were conquered by her beauty, and this young man before her was merely one of them. Many geniuses were willing to follow her the moment they laid eyes on her. And because of this, her Xiao sect was ranked within the top 3 in the city of ancient emperors. Xiaoling Yue naturally wouldn't know that this hint of emotion wasn't because of her. It was because after looking at her, Qin Wentian was reminded of Qing Er. How is it? Xiaoling Yue confidently asked. A faint smile could be seen on her lips, further accentuating her charisma. For those who join a power in the city of ancient emperors, there shouldn't be any relationship after we leave the city, right? Qin Wentian asked. Qin Wentian's words caused many in the surroundings to laugh silently. Seems like this young man who just arrived here had no way to resist Xiaoling Yue's charm. Naturally, this is only limited to the city of ancient emperors. In fact, if you want to leave the Xiao sect within the city, you can do so at any time. After all, the city of ancient emperors is a training ground. You can do as you please. Xiaoling Yue spoke. MHM. Qin Wentian nodded. After that, he turned to Zi Qingxian and Jun Mingchen as he transmitted his voice. Xiaoling Yue is searching for Qing. If I join the Xiao sect, I'll be able to find Qing. At the first instant. I'll choose to join temporarily. What about you guys? I'll follow senior brother Qin. If you want to join, I'll join as well. Jun Mingchen replied. Zi Qingxian pondered for a moment. Her beautiful eyes turned to Qin Wentian as she sighed in her heart. Seems like Qin Wentian's feelings for Princess Qing were extremely deep. She also transmitted her voiceover. We're together. Thank you. A smile appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes. The three of them exchanged glances and smiled. After that, Qin Wentian turned to Xiaoling Yue and spoke. We're willing to join the Xiao sect. Seems like they still have no way to resist Xiaoling Yue's charm. But this is also normal. Xiaoling Yue took the initiative to invite them. To newcomers who just entered the city of ancient emperors, this is already a great honor. The spectators from afar started discussing. The experts from the Xiao sect all had different expressions on their faces. Welcome. Xiaoling Yue smiled at Qin Wentian. After that, she turned and spoke. Let's return to the Xiao sect first. You guys can introduce the Xiao sect to me. Senior brother, this Xiaoling Yue is extremely arrogant. She's one of the three most famous beauties in the city of ancient emperors. I've finally met her. Jun Mingchen transmitted his voiceover. The three of them lifted their feet and followed after Xiaoling Yue. Right now, several experts from the Xiao sect were staring at them. That arrogant young man glanced at them and spoke. The Xiao sect doesn't accept mediocre people. If you guys are too weak, you will be expelled from the Xiao sect. After speaking, he turned and walked side by side with Xiaoling Yue. Leng Yue, I really don't understand why you recruited the three of them so easily. There's no need for you to understand. Xiaoling Yue calmly replied, her words causing the arrogant young man to shake his head. What an arrogant fellow! Jun Mingchen coldly snorted as he stared at the back of that young man. His name is Xia Qianhan. He has always been like this. There's no need for you guys to mind him too much. That young man with his arms crossed in front of his chest laughed. Staring at Qin Wentian and the others, he continued. Let me introduce myself. My name is Liu as in Jade. But clearly, I'm a man. Haha, if I didn't see you, I would really think that's a woman's name. Jun Mingchen laughed. Number 81 on the Immortal Ascension rankings, Liu. Qin Wentian mumbled, his eyes flashing with sharpness. Xia Qianhan, number 96 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Your memory isn't bad. Liu laughed. However, Xia Qianhan's words aren't wrong. The Xiao sect doesn't accept mediocre people. Although Xiaoling Yue is a woman, her judgment is extremely high. She wouldn't even be interested in ordinary characters. If your performance is too weak in the future, you guys would definitely be expelled from the Xiao sect. My performance is too weak? Would the Xiao sect fight against other powers? Qin Wentian asked. That's very rare. After all, the Xiao sect is one of the top 3 powers in the city of ancient emperors. Ordinary powers wouldn't dare to antagonize them. However, I'm sure you guys don't know that the outskirts of the city of ancient emperors are filled with secret realms and treasures. There are even legendary treasures left behind by ancient emperors. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.